We are live. Welcome everyone to the live stream. We have the Green Shiz collectibles up there in the right corner, and we have Basic Trainer in the bottom. Guys, right now, if anyone just opens another window, make sure to check out their channels. The Green Shiz collectibles, give him a sub, give him some love. Same with Basic Trainer. You can follow them both on Instagram too at the exact same usernames. Um, Guys, do you guys want to just give like an introduction to yourselves? Anyone who watches my channel that hasn't heard of either one of you? A lot of people that watch me probably have, but either one who wants to start, you guys can kind of give a brief intro.
Go ahead, Basic. Take it away, man.
Me? I was just going to give it to you, but Basic Trainer here. I hobby, man. I hobby. I love the hobby. I don't care what the topic is, as long as it's about the hobby, as long as it's about cards, as long as Pokemon is involved. Maybe we sprinkle in some Metazoo in there. But as long as it's hobby, I just love talking about it. Markets, even though I do very little of investing or investing purposely by design. I just love this. I got back into the hobby. I want to say it's late 2012, and like most people, just got lucky. It wasn't by design. I did not have a fortune ball. I was not smart enough to predict any of this. I was just one of those idiots that decided to pour in money into something that was very nostalgic to myself, and so here we are, freaking 2023, and we're still freaking we're banging content out, talking about Pokemon markets. So it's awesome.
Hell yeah, man. I luckily had the pleasure of having you on, Alex, about a year ago, almost a year ago on my channel, which was cool. Looking back, I was watching some of that today, and I got back into the hobby about April of 2020. Pretty much COVID slapped, and I was like, all right, I'm bored. Figure out something to do, and just started looking at different things, collecting different things, buying things I probably shouldn't have. And probably for like the first year was just full blown collector mode, buying a lot of stuff and selling like some raw cards. Didn't even really know what grading was for like the first year, and then went off the deep end. So now it's like full blown just slat. You can see it kind of behind me, a bunch of slabs and plastic, just collecting a whole bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon video games. And the channel is pretty much just dedicated to my journey of collecting. And then I also have a pretty awesome podcast I do with my friend Professor Oak called Slab Podcast that we do weekly, and it's a hell of a time, man. Loving the hobby.
Awesome. I mean, I'll just get right into it. I had that question for you just because you have that Sunday live stream every week. So I know for me, I mean, I don't know everything there is to know about PWCC, but I mean, kind of give a good idea of like how it works. So I know how it works in theory, but have you experienced selling on there? How exactly do the payments work? I mean, I know they have like premiums they give you based on what your items sell for. Are there any fees to sell on there? Can you kind of go into any of that?
Yeah, so basically standard fee is probably around 20%. It's all worked into like a buyer's premium. So that buyer's premium is the amount they're getting. So the 20% is what they're taking home. Of course, there's a scale. There's a scale like when you get a higher sold item, your percentage will drop. I think $1 million plus items closer to like 5%. So you're paying way less. But I'm sure if you called one of their salespeople, you could probably haggle them down to even less than that. But I haven't personally sold through there. I just do a lot of buying usually on Sundays because they auction like 4,000 Pokemon items in a matter of an hour and a half, it's a lot of freaking things. There's not enough eyes to even see all the different things, which is crazy. So it's really cool. It's come a long way in a year and 4 months since they pretty much left eBay. Their website is looking good. It's looking more and more like eBay every day, which is awesome. The filters are getting better, and there's just tons of different stuff on there from vintage all the way up to modern. No, not so much sealed stuff, but like it's pretty rare even. Like usually there's like 5 different sealed items and it's like a random case of flash fire or something. But there's so many. It's just graded cards, like 98% graded cards, and then a handful of raw cards, which is really random. But There's so much crap on there. You can get lost easily. So don't recommend you go on there because you're going to get lost and spend money.
So you basically still just sell on eBay or something like that?
That's where I sell, yeah. I'm a fan of eBay just because there's more eyes when I'm selling stuff, and when I consign stuff, it's usually through Z&G Emporium or somebody like that, so I can try and utilize that type of service where it's on eBay. Just so many more eyes on there.
What about you, Basic? Are you just using eBay like normal? Are you selling different areas?
Yeah, if I'm selling, because I am in the process of getting my flippers license. So I use eBay. I've had my eBay account for a very long time. I haven't.
That's the technical name for it, everyone.
Say again.
I said that's the technical name for it. The flippers license.
And so, but yeah, I use eBay. Really, it's the only source I use unless it's in person, collecticons, things like that. But I use eBay to sell. I do use PWCC a lot to buy because I am still a big buyer. I'm still a big collector. Like Shiz mentioned, PWC, there's more eyes on eBay, so it makes sense to sell there versus PWCC, which makes sense to go on PWCC. And if you're on it weekly, like easily once a month, you're gonna snag a great deal, like 50% off, great deal. So I definitely recommend it to everyone. Go on PWCC, look for your favorite cards that you're chasing, and just wait on PWCC, and you might get lucky one of these days. So I love PWCC for that matter. But yeah, primarily, like I said, PWCC is to buy. And eBay, I don't do a lot of buying anymore. It's just selling.
I can't. So I've been trying to read through PWCC because I don't really understand how it works completely. Like, so as far as I can read, the seller has no fees. I mean, it's free to sell.
Yeah. So it's the way they word it is so really effing bad. Honestly, it's really bad. So you get 100% of the hammer price. So say the item sells for $100. You get the $100, but the person buying it pays $120.
Right.
So they're paying $100 plus the 20% buyer's premium. So they work that in their head. They're working that thing down $20 from the hammer price with the buyer's premium. So in their head, they're working it down, and you're pretty much paying 20%. But the way they have it written, it looks like you're going to pay zero fees, but you're getting hit.
Say that again. How are you getting hit?
So say you got a Charizard, it's beat up, it's raw, it sells for $100. The hammer hits, it's $100. Then the buyer knows he's going to pay an additional $20 on top of the 100. So he knows he normally would have went to 120 on eBay, but instead he's going only to 100, and then he knows he's going to get slapped with $20. So the buyer's pulling back, essentially. He's not going to full send and know he's going to pay 20% on top. It can happen. Like, there's stuff that PWCC, of course, has tons of things that sell way over. It's random. It's some things that do, but a lot of times it's around market or under.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I asked, because I think you're right, probably on average. But I've been noticing, like, because I know you talked about selling your first edition base PSA 9s. Yep. I mean, I've been noticing those go real similar to what they're going for on eBay. And in my mind, I'm like, well, if I sell a $3,000 Venusaur, I'm getting hit with, $400 in fees on eBay, where, I mean, if it sells for around the same on PWCC, I'm saving all that money. And then I'm also getting a premium based on what price range it goes in. I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't seem right, but apparently that's how it works.
Yeah. So again, for an example, so say the Venusaur is $2,000, whatever. Say PSA 9 Venusaur is $2,000. The buyer's going to spend, he's like, okay, the market price is $2,000. So I'm going to hammer this down at whatever, $1,600. So that way he knows when you add the 20%, he's paying $2,000. So then me as a seller, I'm losing out on that $400 because the guy stopped at $1,600. That's kind of the game you play. They word it really. It's like manipulative the way they word it. It's really weird. I'm not a fan of it at all.
Because you don't get any of that premium, correct?
Zero. Well, you do. Right. You can for like a higher selling item. That's where they tell you get 110%. You get 115%, which is, I mean, you're almost getting the full market for what the person paid. Essentially, you're working towards 120% of the sale.
It's the same on like Facebook Marketplace or even in person at events. It's like, well, hey, it's going for this on eBay. You don't have to ship it or pay fees. I'll pay you this for it. It all works its way down to around the same price. I mean, I'm sure you guys kind of get the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, I just had a negotiation with a guy. I was like, "Hey, what state are you in?" And then he made the mistake of telling me he's in California. I'm like, "Oh, okay. So you're saving more money because you're not paying 9% sales tax." Like, what an idiot! Like, it's crazy. So, yeah, you're literally just doing the math and figuring out who's making money. And yeah, it's fun though. I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the reason. Like, because I am buying a lot on PWCC. If a single item is going for $100 on average, regardless of what marketplace you're looking at, when you go to these marketplaces that charge you that or that apply the buyer's premium, well, you're probably only going to hit, and this is for the majority of the people, $80. They're gonna bid $80 just so that when they get hit with that buyer's premium, they're close to that $100 mark, give or take, a few percentage points, but. That's why I asked, like, if the seller is not getting any of that 20%, that's where they're getting hit, because essentially their item is selling for less than what the market is going for.
So eBay is still the standard. That's like where everyone draws their price from. And then, whether it's PWCC or at a Collecticon or a Facebook Marketplace, it's all basically based off the eBay price still is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, the majority, I'd say. But yeah, a lot of things also, video games, you could use heritage for sold listings, which is awesome. But yeah, PWCC, Golden, they all got something to offer for sold listings.
Well, guys, I made the title "The Great Debate on the Future of Pokemon Hobby," and the reason for that is I wanted to get both of your honest takes on where we're at, and basic. You can even bleed that into Metazoo if you want to work that in. But I mean, obviously, you guys know how I am. I'm so bullish on everything. I mean, I guess just kind of go one at a time. Like, what are your guys' opinion, going forward right now with the world falling apart and the banks collapsing, with new TCG seemingly popping up every day. It seems like now we got videos of people saying Lorcana is going to be the death of Pokemon or something. And, and with all that stuff going on, I mean, where are you sitting right now? Are you just basically in flip mode? Are you holding anything? Are you buying anything for long term when you see deals? Like, where are you at right now in today's market?
You want to go first, basic?
Yeah, sure. Where am I at in today's market? Well, a little bit of the knowledge that we all gained, especially myself, and we talked about this a little bit before going live, is I got extremely lucky. I was just one of those idiots that, people were making fun of when they were buying back into Pokemon and spending arguably a lot of money, into spending into Pokemon, and this phrase made more sense then than now. Buying cardboard, buying cartoons, printed cartoons on cardboard, boxes and what have you. So it was just all luck. It was just all, I got bailed out by the, I don't know, how is it safe to say, millions, across the world of Pokemon fans that, grew up in the same era. And well, just like your YouTube channel says, Alex, it's nostalgia, right? And nostalgia bit us. And when people started working, they started getting a little bit of money. When I got back in again 10 years ago, I was 25 years old. So I don't know. It was like, you know what? I can afford X item. I can afford to pull the trigger on this. Why not? It meant something to me, with the intention I'm going to open one day. Well, that one day never happened because, just like it happened to me, it happened to thousands, tens of thousands of people across the world. They were doing the same thing, which made the market go up slowly, steadily, slowly, but definitely going up. 2016 happened, 2020 happened. But what we learned, or what I learned specifically, because I wasn't counting on any of that. I wasn't counting on making money. I wasn't counting on sitting on it and investing on it and then cashing out one day whenever it made X amount of returns. I was just more like a deer caught in the headlights, like, whoa, what the hell is going on? And so but no, I had no intention. I had no intention of that. But what I did learn was, oh, this works a lot like markets, right? People start getting into a frenzy, a buying frenzy, and so the market shoots up. But then you also have the opposite extreme where all of a sudden everyone's done buying, everyone picked up what they needed to pick up. And so once more supply comes up, but everyone's done buying, then the market starts slowing back down. Then you multiply that by the real markets, the real outside markets that were real impacted in our wallets, possible job losses for folks, bank failures, prices for goods, groceries going up, rent going up, mortgages going up. All of those things just impact people psychologically. And so it makes people stop buying. And so long story short, cut my rant off here. Essentially I'm in hold mode because I'm not going to, if I didn't sell at the peak, why in the hell am I going to sell at the bottom? Right? Unless you need to, of course. That's going to be the easiest pull of the trigger. If I needed to pay the bills, everything's gone. But as long as I don't need to, as long as I'm coasting, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to sit on it. With that said, Pokemon's not going anywhere. Pokemon's going to be here forever. But we are going to have to wait and see where collectibles go from here, because we all know 2020 was a Black Swan event. Are we ever going to see those numbers hit again, for some of these items? Think of like the big hitters, your first edition Charizard, the peak of that card. Will it ever get there again in the next couple of years? I don't think so personally, but we'll just have to wait and see. But as of now, market-wise, I'm holding. I'm not selling at the bottom.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Last year for me, it was just heavy. Well, the last couple, whatever, for a while, it's been just collector mode basically, and sometimes selling things to sometimes help pay for things. But it's this year has been a big flip for me, kind of selling a lot of things, just selling, buying collections again, which feels awesome. Turning those into graded cards, selling those through eBay. It feels like a good time to sell. And even like you look at Japanese, that stuff's insane. What's going on there? But in general, the future of the Pokemon hobby, I generally think, obviously it's bright. I don't see this horse is not slowing down anytime soon. You look at everything going on. Obviously, the video games are freaking killing it. You got all that going on. You got Metazoo completely just crap in the bed. But yeah, no, it's I think Pokemon's got a super bright future. Obviously the prices are a little bit low on English. Like I had, for example, purchased a PSA 9 first edition Blastoise for like almost $5,000, and now it's maybe 3,400, 3,500. So things have come down quite a bit. So I'm taking losses where I need to, taking gains in a bunch of different places currently on sealed products, which for me, working full time has been nice. Just buying some really nice sets and just holding on to those for a little while and seeing those gain. Like for me, that's the little effort. I absolutely love how that's been working for me in the last year or so. Really fun. Looking forward to more and more sealed buying. Just waiting for the right sets. Not every set. Just calculated purchases on sealed products has been really fun.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, honestly. I think I don't think we're going through any type of like gigantic like depression in Pokemon. I think it's just the natural ebbs and flows of the markets. We were on an absolute ridiculous trajectory in Sword and Shield, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Scarlet and Violet. I know people are like really kind of jumping off the boat way too quickly with the base set, like too much supply, too easy to hit. Oh man, the silver borders, like all this other stuff. And this is just normal ebbs and flows of the market. It's not crashing. That's usually, they always came down after release. It's just people got so used to, sets just coming out of the gate and being absolute winners with Sword and Shield. And it's just kind of coming back to reality. And it's time to relax a little bit, And actually, the other weird thing is we all know it because we've seen like Basic talks about it. It's markets. Once you realize it's a cardboard market, you know how to play it. I mean, I have some comments on my channel, you know, because obviously we all get new collectors, new people just entering the hobby, and someone was literally asking me on my last video when I was comparing the PSA cards. They were saying, "How come all those cards you showed? Why are the Japanese so much less? The Japanese should cost more than English." And so, like, that's what people know because they're getting in the hobby right now. They see Japanese out of control, and then they look back at like these older cards and they legitimately think, oh, wait, Japanese should be way more than that. Why is it less than English? It's like, no, Japanese has never been more than English. Unless it's some kind of one-off, like, you know, Japanese only promo or something. But if it's like a set card and English has it in that set, I mean, maybe you guys know, I can't remember a card that's more in Japanese than it is in English. And so, I think there's just different perspectives of when you get in the hobby and what you see, and that kind of makes your hobby worldview of how of like what prices should be and what value is. And I mean, what do you guys think about this whole Japanese craziness right now? Do you think it's going to change the hobby, or is this like just a small craziness and then come back down, things are going to level out and be normal again?
Yeah, I feel bad for the people that collect it. Like, I know Opossum Bud was a huge Japanese collector, and him having to basically stop that at all fronts because the price is just insane. You're selling freaking booster boxes at 4x the effing price right now, which is stupid for you get like, what is it, 5 cards a pack? I don't even know. I don't think I've opened a Japanese pack since probably 2002. But it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. I don't know how people can justify buying that, opening it, and just like the cards right now are just, they're tough to pull. Like even the waifu cards, that the ones that are just booming for sales is crazy. They're not easy to pull. Like you're ripping through tons and tons of boxes. It's the Japanese it's tough to keep up with. Like you said, the old historic Japanese is just so much value in some of that stuff. Like I've recently been picking up like Japanese Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Pokemon. It is dirt cheap compared to the English counterparts. It's insane. So, but the modern complete 180, like you said, doesn't make sense. I can't understand it, wrap my hand around it. Shouldn't be there.
Yeah. It's I had a live, I want to say maybe a month ago. I had Retro, I believe was on there. He chimed in. He jumped in. DNA, shout out to those guys. Believe Kosin as well. And you know, these guys are more deep into that side of the market, the Japanese market. They've been doing it for a little bit now, so they definitely have more knowledge than the just the normal Joe Schmo like myself. But I was thinking, my theory was, why now? Kind of like you were saying, Alex, like why now? Like what happened, right? Because for the longest, for the better of 25 years, English was always king, right, over Japanese. What happened over the course, what I'm feeling like in the last 12 months? What happened? My theory is with social media now being a thing, you know, it's I think the majority falls in the trend end of the spectrum. But as I brought these guys along, they kind of gave me a little bit of knowledge, you know, as to the harder pull rates in Japanese versus English, the better quality, obviously, the aesthetics, just the aesthetics and how they make the card in Japanese versus English. Set card looks a ton better, and I would agree with that, even dating back to base set. Going back to base set, if you compare a base set anything versus the base set English, the Japanese looks better. And that was always the case, but for some reason, English was always more expensive than it was. So and then they also included the theory that, you know, China is getting in, and we all know China has a crazy population. We don't know how much of that is true, but if China is getting into the Pokemon market, and you know, as a Latino man myself, it's like, I'm not buying Spanish Pokemon, right? I'm not buying Spanish Pokemon cards. And so just like, you know, the Chinese population, they're probably not going to buy Chinese cards. They're going to go after the king. Essentially, it's Japanese. It's the one that started it all. So therefore, you know, you apply all of those things on top of what I mentioned before, just the psychology and the trend and the flex culture that we are now. That's just the trend thing today. maybe some data justifies it as well. And here we are, freaking Japanese is going bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, in Pokemon, I mean, I think now it's considered probably. I mean, it's always been the biggest franchise for a while, but I think now, I mean, with especially how Magic's performing, I think it's pretty safe to say it is now the premier hobby to collect. I mean, at least for the time being. Maybe Magic has a comeback, but it's a premier hobby, and so obviously, everyone wants to kind of get a piece of that when they see how much Pokemon Company's making, and so I mean, obviously Lorcana is going to be a huge deal. I mean, with all the hype they're going to put into it. Shiz, he's been a Yu-Gi-Oh player, Yu-Gi-Oh collector, putting a lot of money into Yu-Gi-Oh. I know One Piece is blowing up. Dragon Ball Super is still around. Basic U with Metazoo. I mean, what do you guys think as far as like all these different hobbies taking money from the pot type thing? Do you think it is going to have an effect? Like, is Pokemon going to go through this sort of, prolonged no growth, stagnation? Are prices going to drop? Are people going to jump out because they see some of the popularity going to these other games because they're, the new bright, shiny thing? Like, what do you guys think about that?
What, Basic?
Well, you hit on something that, I'm going to go off on a little bit here, but
Go ahead.
Let her rip, Tater Chip.
You mentioned the blue chip Metazoo, right? And so, but no, it's I want to say there's definitely truth to that, because right, if my own collector portfolio, if I could show it in charts form, it would show you that before Metazoo came into the limelight, then it was all Pokemon. Anything that was coming out of my wallet into the hobby, it was 100% going into Pokemon. Now that 100% of funds going into the hobby is being distributed. Is it evenly distributed? Is it 50-50? Probably not, but a chunk is going into Metazoo now. How many of people are essentially doing the same, whether they're because they're playing, whether they're collecting, whatever the reason may be, flipping even, right? Maybe they're finding it that flipping in Metazoo, they're finding it easier because there's not a lot of people doing it and it's a clear lane there. But regardless, definitely other hobbies, and it's not just Metazoo, there's other card games out there that are still alive, right? Today, that started back in 2020, give or take a year, and they're still here. A ton of people, a ton of money is going into those hobbies. So 100%, is it taken away from Pokemon? For sure. I remember Dan, Dan Ketchum, shout out if he's still in the chat, but someone in the chat said something about, oh, Metazoo will never take a slice of the Pokemon pie. And Dan's like, I'm making Metazoo content. It's already taken a slice of the pie. I used to be 100% Pokemon, right? And now I'm making Metazoo content. That's taken a slice of the pie. If I'm buying into it for whatever reason, obviously he's selling. So therefore, instead of buying X amount in Pokemon, he's taking that and moving it over to Metazoo, being very successful at that. So definitely a thing. And I think it's very natural. It's a very easy, it's a very easy equation to solve. Yes, 100%. When we are taking our money that used to go into one thing and now we're splitting it off, it's going to affect the original market. And if everyone's doing that in some way, so shape or form.
Yeah, I talking just to continue on the Metazoo stuff a little bit. I am a huge fan of what they've done on the competitive scene, which is freaking like unheard of. Which is, if those of you that don't know, in Basic, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're doing 7 huge tournaments this year called Towers. And in those Towers, it's $800,000 prize pool, or
yep, it's 150, and this is combined with cash and product, but it's $150,000 worth of stuff.
Yep, which is insane, because I coming from like a Yu-Gi-Oh competitive scene and knowing some of the Pokemon stuff, like the prize pool for that is just insane. So I could see stuff like them, or if Lorcana does stuff like that, pulling a lot of competitive players. I don't know how it's doing right now, Metazoo pulling other competitive players, because the people that play competitively are there to win and win money by winning a prize card, winning invitations to these larger tournaments to win even better prize cards and bigger materials. So Metazoo's swinging the biggest D around right now as far as prize pool goes, and it's got to be pulling different competitive players, just because if you're in a competitive scene and you want to make max profits, like it's there. The fruit's there for the taking, and the people not doing it is just because they're not a fan and they're taking losses because of that, in my opinion. I don't own any more Metazoo cards, sold everything I had to Basic in the last 2 months. I didn't have a whole lot. It was less than $400 sale, but it was all graded cards. But yeah, a huge fan of the whole competitive scene. I think Lorcana, like every single person in the chat said, it's a huge pump and dump. It will pull. I don't think it'll pull people out of Pokemon. It'll be just another collectible, like the Disney 100, like the Weiss Disney anniversary set. All of these things. Like if I open a Rip and Chip channel right now, they're ripping Disney 100. It's not pulling people out of Pokemon. It's just like in addition to, really. So Lorcana is going to be that. And if you can get in the ground floor on Lorcana and do a pump and dump like all these people are suggesting it is, you'll probably do all right. So I think the sports people are already there, ready to help pump it up for you. So it'll be a fun ride if you get in pretty early. So, but nothing's going to pull from Pokemon. It's all these different towers raising with different cards, and it's all here to stay for quite a bit. Metazoo is probably not going anywhere, I don't think, for a while.
Hey, big shout out to Pokey Grindin and Monana for the super chats. I think that's €1, €1 possibly.
Damn, big
money. We're on different continents here. No, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I've been kind of like, steadily backing off a little bit and kind of watching that, because I'm just seeing like money flow to all these other hobbies. And then with Yu-Gi-Oh releasing all the original boxes like this year, all those 6 original boxes. I mean, I myself, I want to open those. It's like I'm feeling myself being drugged these other hobbies, and it kind of brings me to the next point. Is that so? Trust me, like I know sealed product how it works, but it is kind of weird how, I mean, some of you guys think about this, how Pokemon constantly releases sets, and it seems like the hit cards, you can never really get your value back, even with like newer, kind of right when they're brand new, sometimes you can, but most of the time you can't really get your value back. I've been opening up, like, say, take Dragon Ball Super, for example. I have opened up probably more than 50% of the Dragon Ball Super boxes and got a card worth more than the whole box, like by a good amount. And it just seems like other hobbies have that. And so I don't know if, like, how does maybe it's because they're biggest media franchise, but how does Pokemon stay so steady and like the sealed product does so well? And you look at these other hobbies and the sealed product does worse, but you have so much better expected value in the box. You can actually open the boxes and make profits, and it doesn't ring. I'm not even talking about grading. I'm talking about raw. So it's like, I can't really wrap my mind around it. I was wondering what you guys think about that whole scenario. Like, how does Pokemon continue to do well? Is it just because they're the biggest and baddest, or what am I missing there?
Yeah. I'll take this one first. I think it's like the Pokemon, the evolution set effect. It's basically, how many Pokemon are there? There's less than 1,000 or so, right? Still. So pretty much people are there to rip nostalgia. So their evolutions, what's their highest, most expensive card? Like the Holo Charizard's maybe $50 raw, guessing. The box is $700, $600. So similar to like Yu-Gi-Oh, that brand new Yu-Gi-Oh set that dropped. The most expensive card is the $50 Blue Eyes from LOB. You can pull, maybe, like the chances of pulling that is like nothing. But the prices of those are just shooting through the roof already in the matter of a week and a half. People just know the 900 Pokemon. Like, people don't know the 35,000 Magic the Gathering characters. They don't know the 60,000 Yu-Gi-Oh characters. It's nice. It's a nice little niche pocket of characters, which almost every character has a collector. There's Politoed, Zapdos, Metagross, just Bulbasaur, Aerodactyl. Weirdos like basic like Aerodactyl for whatever reason, who knows? But just everybody's got that Pokemon, and then that's it. Like, you can rip these boxes and feel the nostalgia, and that's it. Just driving the force.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's just like, I don't know, like, I'll just like go to my card shop and just randomly, like, me and my wife will just go up there and we're like, hey, let's just buy something you want to open. Yep. And I just, there's this Dragon Ball Super box that just got released, and I opened one. And I pulled a card. It was worth like $125, and I sold it to recoup the money for the box and came out ahead. But I was looking on there, like some of the hit cards. They have cards going for like $500 in the set, and it's just like out of a $75 box. Like you never see that with Pokemon, right? You never see a $500 raw card from a $100 box. I'm just like, how do these sealed products not do as well as Pokemon when Pokemon has far less value to be had, you know?
Yeah,
Just
it's
only the characters? Is that, I mean, I guess that's what we're going with.
yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I think from the sealed standpoint, right? Because I think Pokemon is king in regards to the sealed value, right? I don't think any other TCG touches that, and I think that's just comes from the sheer numbers in the hobby. And from the raw standpoint, raw cards, again, it's probably going to be mentioned a few times. So sorry, guys, in the chat, but Metazoo, it's freaking crazy. I don't know how many cards in like the last set for Pokemon are hitting triple digits, right? But for the latest set, Native, there's easily over 12. I think there's 12 to 14 cards hitting over 100. Out of the, and this is today market is $100 box, and you're guaranteed something along 2 of those hits per box. And each one of those, again, over $100. 3 to 4, they're going to be about 150. There's about 2 to 3 over 200. There's one card at over $300. So these are ridiculous prices in raw. And again, we're talking about a game in Metazoo that is extremely small in comparison to other TCGs, let alone Pokemon. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it all has to do with different variables in Metazoo because it is so small. And right now it is very heavily competitive. That's what's driving those prices, right? It's not collectors. It's not the collector wanting the raw card to buy it and flip it because the price is there. Where in Pokemon, that is the case. And in Pokemon, there's just more variables. You got the sheer amount of people, but then you got your collectors. You got your collectors of the raw card. You got your collectors of the slabbed card. You got the collector of the sealed product. It's all over the place. And that's why Pokemon is so healthy, because Pokemon will never lose. Pokemon will never lose for that reason.
Yeah, on the Metazoo cards, real quick, and kind of the Dragon Ball too. Are any of those like numbered cards? Are they like printed as artificial scarcity? Like what's with those cards?
Yeah, for sure. So the N19, right? And we're talking about 14 that are all over triple digits. All of those are harder to pull, but again, you're guaranteed, and this is based on Dan's data, about 2 per box, right? And so just about I wasn't that lucky, but just about 2 per box. And if you're opening up a case, I mean, it's a crazy EV. But yeah, it's no numbered cards. We haven't even touched on the numbered cards, the SRs. We haven't even touched those. This is just stuff that the normal person can just pull out, expect to pull from a case of a booster boxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pokemon's got, like you said, all those different collectors. There's people that collect Pokemon ketchup bottles, and it's just like untouchable. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I've even, going back to the Japanese side of things, I've even seen like the big YouTube openers. They're starting to switch to more Japanese openings, and it's just running the trend even further. You're seeing the shift, and I'm trying to figure out. I've never got into Japanese, and probably for the last 6-8 months on my channel, I've had at least a couple comments every video, asking me about Japanese. And so I should have seen this coming. I feel like an idiot that I didn't get more involved and didn't learn it and didn't start getting into Japanese. And now that it's here, it's like, I mean, even if it is just a short-term thing, we have to define short-term. I mean, this could be like a year-long thing. I mean, because with the hype of YouTubers and how long just things take, the boxes get made, the sets take how long they take to get out. I mean, things last, they last longer. Like, so when you say short term, that could still be a year and a half long, if it ever does change. So, I mean, it's just weird being at this turning point. Like I said, we have some of their hobbies, Pokemon's changing. There's just a lot going on. I mean, I'm just, we touched on it earlier, but so other than, basic, you switch to Metazoo, Shiz, you kind of going, more to the flipping route. I mean, have you guys changed like your long-term, plans? I mean, are you just going to go like more into flipping, like from here on out until things change? Or is it you thinking about getting back to business as usual, going back to putting things away, collecting? I don't think either one of you really uses the word investing, so I won't use that on you. But I mean, what do you think? Like, are things going to just kind of change for the good now until you see things change, or how's that look?
I'll go, I guess. So yeah, what would you? So I guess I'm going to ask you a quick question. I bought Lost Origin booster boxes, like 9 cases of them, $91 a box, and I still have them. Is that investing? Or is it speculating?
It's whatever you want to call it. Me and Dan will go back and forth on this. He says what I do is flipping. I'll say what he does is investing. It's all semantics. I don't care what you call it, man.
Yeah. So those are still in my closet on the shelf. So they're still there waiting for. Basically, my plan is to sell those into the next big box I see coming out. So the plan is to perpetually sell into this, buy into this. Really only collecting like video games. Like I don't sell video games typically, graded video games. I don't sell a whole lot of Yu-Gi-Oh until probably this last month, because I bought a couple of big collections, but mainly collecting Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon is like, because of the liquidity of Pokemon is just untouchable. You can get a PSA 10 Chikorita from 2013 and that thing will sell for $30 all day. Doesn't matter if it's pop 3,075 or if it's pop 20,000. The thing's going to sell for like 25, $30 if it's a 10. I don't know. It's really strange how liquid Pokemon is compared to Metazoo, Yu-Gi-Oh, anything else right now. In the PSA 10 form, it's insane. So I'm going to perpetually be selling into this and taking my L's from the cards I bought in the hype. So I did buy and still buying. So
investing? What are we talking about here? We're talking about cardboard, not stocks, cardboard. Yeah. It's just not my lane. I mean, I obviously know that you can make money off of Pokemon. I obviously know that you can make money off of Modern. There's no secret there. But as far as like, I think your question, Alex, was what are you guys doing? What are your plans, right? Holding, what are your methods for long term?
Like how are you like specifically like changing it up from what you've been doing in the last 1 to 2 years past?
Yeah, so I'm staying the course, and it's always been just buying, collecting what you love, and yeah, I'm very narrow-minded. I don't look now. With that said, again, I have been recently going. I'm trying to apply for my flipper's license, so slowly but surely, I'm starting to do that. There's just a ton of knowledge out there, and I'm very grateful that I'm around a bunch of these guys, that are doing it regularly and they're putting out their content out for free. Like both of you guys sharing your experiences for folks like myself and everyone in the chat to just learn. And, it's very doable. You just got to put in the time. So I started doing that myself within Pokemon. Funny enough, I'm doing it a ton in Metazoo because there's no competition there. And so, or very little. And so I'm applying everything that I've learned from Pokemon and applying it into Metazoo. And it's done well enough, right? Nothing big scale, nothing crazy, but well enough where it's very repeatable. And it's fun, right? I mean, it's always fun to make money. But yeah, investing, I don't invest, I don't hold. There's definitely a ton of items that I have, but as my boy PK would say, basic, you're investing by default because you're sitting on it, and as time goes by, it's going to appreciate. Sure, if by default that makes me an investor, cool, but I wouldn't call myself an investor though from that standpoint. But yeah, and right with the current market, even like maybe this is the time to buy, right? Maybe some of those items that you were always looking for, maybe this is the time to buy. Maybe the floors are still higher than when they used to be before, 2020 or even that 2020 mark before the boom. But maybe it's that psychological thinking of it's not going to get any lower, right? Because it's staying steady at the floor of what it is right now. It's staying steady. It might not go any lower. This is probably going to be the time to strike. before something crazy happens. I mean, nothing crazy needs to happen, but I think once markets start recovering, once wallets start feeling a little bit more healthier, a little bit more freer, people are going to be spending money more freely, and maybe some of that money now starts flowing into Pokemon. And once that starts happening in masses, gradually prices are going to go up. So things like that. I mean, nothing drastic, nothing crazy, but that's pretty much what I've been doing.
Well, here, kind of go more into that. So you said a couple of times, what you were doing in Pokemon was working, so you transferred to Metazoo. So what exactly do you do then? Just is it all just singles? Is it singles and grading? I mean, are you messing with sealed product?
No sealed product. No sealed product. If I have sealed product, it's because I just happen to have it, and I'm holding it as a collector's piece, not from an investor, not from I'm thinking this is going to do X down the road. And which I don't have. I think someone in the, I think it's DidGen. Shout out DidGen. Keeps saying, Basic keeps pumping Metazoo because he has a lot of money into it, right? And I was like, that's not the case at all. Like, it's very little. Whatever I do have in it, it's a collectible. It's staying in, just like stuff that I bought a decade ago in Pokemon, and it's still in my collection. I'm not moving it. It's not going anywhere, most likely. And so, but yes, you're right, Alex. It's moving more towards because I am playing with Metazoo, and when I say playing player, I'm playing in tournaments. I'm going to all of these towers that Josh mentioned. One for every single month, 150K. I mean, how do you just pass that up? And like I mentioned before, even from the flipper standpoint, there's not a lot of competition in comparison to the Yu-Gi-Oh world, the Pokemon world. I mean, I don't even know what those numbers look like, but those have to be crazy. Right now, my competition in Metazoo for $150,000, a pool prize, 150 to 200 players. I like those odds. I like those odds. And so if you have the time to just, learn the game, which is an extremely fun game. I played Pokemon for over 10 years. Metazoo makes Pokemon look like a freaking kindergartner's game. And no offense to anyone that plays it, it's just that I played it for a long time and it was fun. I was introduced to a new game and it was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is crazy fun. Shout out the Mexican hipster. He says, well, if you like Metazoo and those are the game mechanics, you would like Yu-Gi-Oh. You would like Magic the Gathering. And maybe that is the case, but I never genuinely was attracted to Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh because whether it's the art, whether it's the format, what have you, it just wasn't there for me. To be quite honest, which is a lot of the reasons why people hate on Metazoo, is that they copy Pokemon. That's the reason why it attracted me to Metazoo, because it looks a lot like Pokemon. The card layout looks a lot like Pokemon, and it was very easy for me to understand from that standpoint. But yes, so because I'm playing, I'm in the inside. I know what's selling. I know what's hot. I know what's playable at that. And so that, again, and then the lack of competition, it's just very easy to play that lane.
When did you get back in the hobby in Pokemon?
Myself, 2012, late 2012. That's when I bought my very first item, and my very first item was a base set box.
Oh my god, what'd you pay for that?
$600.
Damn, overpaid.
Okay, so
overpaid. I overpaid for the time. I overpaid, and believe me, I was ridiculed within my family. Yeah,
$600. I paid $2,000. Tell me, just explain to me how you were able to hold through that boom, because I wasn't able to, because I had your same exact mindset. You could ask anyone that knows me. When I eventually started getting those boxes, the base set and the first edition jungle, the fossil, when I started putting those in my safe, that was where they were to stay forever. I was going to have those the rest of my life. But when things go from $1,500 and $2,000 to 20 and 25 grand, how does one hold on to that?
First one, deer caught in the headlights. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know how to navigate that. Two, when I contemplated if this is the right thing, should I move it? I knew that I would never see this item again, right? This was my, let's call it prized possession, because it reminded me of my childhood, right? If we can all go, it was funny. I had Jake on one of my lives, and he said, something along, it's the reason why, because it's trauma, right? It's trauma based, it's trauma related. But regardless of the reason why, it reminded me of my childhood. It was an amazing time. It was a great time. And I bought that. My intention was to open it one day for a very important and big event, celebratory type, thing. Well, that never came about, and the prices started going up before that could even happen. Which at that point, once it even like got to I think $4,000 or $5,000, I said it's irresponsible for me to open it just for fun.
Yeah.
Right. And so I never opened it, and I never did for that reason. When it hit the peak, it was just one of those, if I sell this, I'll never see this item again, because I don't see, even at today's prices, even if it went down to $8,000, it is irresponsible for me to spend $8,000 today on a single item. I can see spreading that around between X amount of items, but on one single item, in my eyes, is irresponsible. And that was the number one driving factor for me to not sell the majority of my collection. I'm never going to see this. With that said, it was a little bit of ignorance, because I could have easily, obviously, sold everything, bought everything back, and kept the change. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, hindsight's 2020, but like,
right.
I mean, what about your using that same logic though? Didn't you? Because this is how I felt. It's why it hits home for me. Because I mean, I don't know if you came from money, or what your financial situation is, but I did. I grew up middle class, and so didn't you start to feel like it's irresponsible to hold on to an item once you got 20 to 25, 30 grand?
No, because I had no plan to use it, right? And listen, I'm all for investing in stocks, 401ks and whatnot. That comes out of the paycheck. If I sell this item, this is not going to go, Dan, catch them all, plug your ears, plug your ears. I am not going to put $35,000 in a freaking 401k to sit on it for 40 years and compound and then enjoy it when I'm 80. I'm not doing that. If I'm going to do that, I want to enjoy that money today. You only get one shot at life. You only get one shot at this experience, right? And so if I'm going to cash out, I'm going to cash out and enjoy it in other ways. But for that reason, it's probably irresponsible for me to do that as well, to just cash out, have no plan, and maybe at worst case scenario, spend it, frivolously across either the hobbies or other things. So I just thought, you know what, let me sit on it. This hobby is not going anywhere. The value of this box, sure, might dip, but it's not going to go to zero. And so I thought, you know what, it's one of the things that I learned from SM Pratt is put yourself in a position to never have to sell. And if you do sell, have a game plan. I was in a position not to sell. I did not have a game plan. Therefore, the best thing I could do was just sit on it. Probably an idiot move, but that's what I did. And I'm not worried about it. Like, that thing's sitting there, and yeah.
Sitting pretty, looking good, huh?
The only thing collectibles collect is dust. So, that's.
Damn.
When did you get back in the hobby?
2020, April.
Okay. So you don't have anything you've been holding that you maybe not.
Yeah, I had zero Pokemon. I had bought a bunch of first edition base sets though pre-boom. And I had ended up selling, like, my biggest thing was selling like a raw first edition base set for $45,000 cash. And it was like near mint condition, but it was, the Charizard wasn't a 10. It was barely a 9 maybe, but like that type of set, just when it peaked, I was like, yeah, this has got to go. Like you said, I grown up middle class. My mortgage at the time was like $50,000. I'm like, if I gotta sell this. Like, there's no shot I could ever keep this. I'd be an idiot just to hold on to this stuff. So I was reaping a lot of gains in the peak, but also buying some things like PSA 9 first edition base towards the end though. I wasn't getting back into it right away. Yeah, it was a hell of a time. It's insane looking back, like base unlimited Charizard's peak at around 6K, and now it's like $800 or whatever for a 9. So we've come down a long ways, and it's kind of stuck there for a while. Like, it's been plateaued, I feel like, for a while.
Well, here I got to follow up to that then. I mean, obviously we can all see your background, your stacks of slabs here in that 44K deal. You say you grew up middle class, had a 50,000 mortgage. I mean, so where'd all this capital come from to kind of get this business going as large as you have?
So basically, the first collection, buying and selling into it, was kind of the main thing. The first thing I told my wife, I went up to my wife. I was like, "Hey, there's this Facebook post. This guy's he's got base set through I don't even remember, it's Gym Challenge, but complete like mint condition in a binder. He wanted $2,000 for it. This is like April 2020, which at the time was like, oh, not bad. He had all the Black Star promos. He cracked a PSA 9 like of the good ones and put them in the binder. Bought that and like flipped it, double the money in like the same week. So I told the wife, I was like, I'm going to be taking a leap of faith here in the next few months while we're riding through this COVID thing. And pretty much just from there, just was buying a large amount for a large sum of money. I didn't start off low, made $2,000 in the first week, but also in sales, working in automotive, I have a pretty good salary. So I was taking some of my own money, investing that into different things. And just if I wish PSA grading was open, because I probably would have retired in the boom, because I had bought some insane collections at that time, but CGC hit me with a bunch of 8.5s. God love them, but it was just perfect timing for me getting in April instead of like end of 2020. I was able to amass quite a bit of stuff before the boom and sell into it. It was just insane. So between, I don't know, I put a lot of my own money into it for sure. I was collecting a whole bunch, but also just at the same time flipping into it quite a bit, a bunch of stuff. So,
I mean, I admire you guys. Like, I don't consider myself to have paper hands, but I definitely don't have diamond hands. So, like, when all that craziness was happening, I mean, like, I had, I guess my collection put aside, and like, like my cases of modern were like what I just had as investment. Like, let's be honest, you're not too attached to big cardboard boxes full of evolutions and shining legends and burning shadows. But like, I had my collection pieces put away, or my collection cards, and I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit there and sit on all this stuff and not sell it. So, I mean, props to you guys. I mean, even like, in your background, like with the sealed video games, I mean, even that stuff, like, is that stuff that you, graded yourself, don't have a lot of capital in? Is it stuff you just bought yourself as like, I'm going to take this and treat myself? I mean, is it, possibly going to go for sale one day? I mean, where do you kind of put everything?
Yeah, so graded 90% of my video games. I've bought them raw at whatever different video game stores. There's tons in Metro Detroit where I'm at of game stores that have just vintage video games. But I have when I first got into it, watching Get the Greg games on YouTube, I was watching his auctions, and I purchased the ice hockey sealed for the NES. It was like one of my favorite games. It was $1,000 at the time, and that was like probably in the boom, because video games boomed, obviously. That game still, it's pretty rare. It's still $800 to $1,000. That one hasn't come down too far. That's probably the most expensive game. I have a few games that are like $1,000, but the games for me is like super nostalgia. I was a super nerd. Like, I played with cards, but I played a ton of GTA, Halo, NES. Like that, I invested my life into those games. I got almost nothing out of it besides now some boxes that just kick me in the nuts for nostalgia, which feels great. But I don't know. I just love the video games. Don't ever plan on selling those. I have a couple of like extra things that cost like $100, but I don't have a whole lot of video games, probably 10, 12 graded games. But it's sick, man. I definitely enjoy it.
So basically everything you're playing with, it's all just extra money or house's money at this point. You got your full-time income takes care of everything else. You don't really need to take any money out of the hobby, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And like I do pretty well grading a lot of times. I got wrecked recently, like a 500 card submission, but I've just had some really good ones. Like today I uploaded a video, graded a Yu-Gi-Oh card that got a PSA 10. It's like an $8,000 to $10,000 card. So there's some really good hits I'm getting out there, getting some really good collections, and able to turn some pretty good stuff around right now.
I mean, I asked Retro, same thing. I asked both of you. So, I mean, where are you say you're sourcing majority of the stuff? I mean, are we talking about like literally searching through hundreds of auctions and buying like card at a time, looking at all the pictures front and back? Or are we talking like what Retro does is kind of just go and buy like multiple, like go in TCG Player and buy all the near mints and hope you get a certain percentage of 9s, certain percentage of 10s. Like what's your bread and butter of how you're sourcing and where you're sourcing?
Basic. I don't know if you want to go first. If not, I can go.
Take it.
Yeah. So for me, I try like the TCG player. I want to do it. I want to do it so bad. I want to go. I tried it. I bought like 30 Gengar alt arts from, I don't even know the set, Lost Origin, I think, actually, the Gengar around the campfire. I was like, all right, I bought 30 of these. What are they? $4 a piece. I graded and I got them all. One of them looked like a 10. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm done. Like, I was like, all these English cards, I should have bought Japanese. That was probably my first wrong. But man, English is terrible. Like I've gotten into box breaks, just new raw cards out of English sets. Just that gamble is just atrocious going for that. You can make it pay off, but that ain't me. So for me, the big collections I purchased recently are generally Facebook Pokemon groups, or the Yu-Gi-Oh ones I purchased are off eBay. I had never purchased collections off eBay. Both of those big collections came from zero feedback sellers on eBay. They actually, so I saw their collection. They had it listed as an auction, and I just slid into their DMs. They had zero bids. I was like, hey, would like to see more pictures, because the pictures were really bad, and makes sense because he's got zero feedback, doesn't know what he's doing. And just start messaging back and forth, getting a bunch of pictures. He takes it off eBay. We go into Instagram messages, and close the deal. There is kind of where the sauce is. Exactly, just finding the hidden gems, finding the collection that has that one card that just pops. Like you're like, damn, that thing could pay for the whole collection. And that's kind of what I did with these last ones. I'm like, it's worth getting this giant binder just for that one card.
That was the recent ones, or that was the old ones?
Those are the recent ones, the ones off eBay. The old ones were Facebook groups.
People that just don't know what they're doing still.
Yeah, no, they're out there. That is the case, but obviously the guy knew what he had, so I didn't completely rip him off at all. So, but Facebook groups still, you can get, when you're getting collections that are up in the 5,000 to 10,000 range, the number of people out there going against you, it's seriously limited. And obviously, like they always say it, like the rich get richer. You can afford these bigger collections. Generally, you could flip these bigger collections for bigger profit than a $400 collection.
That's interesting. I'll let Basic go in a second. That's interesting because, in a Facebook group where obviously you're going to be more experts, like, most people in a Facebook group, you saw out a Facebook group, you're going to really realize more of what you have or know more about what you have. And so they just so badly want to get out of the items and let it all go at once to someone that they're willing to take, a certain percentage off, and you can kind of capture those gains type thing.
Yep. Yeah. So the one collection I'm thinking of, the person was really genuine. They were like, they have like approximately a $10,000 collection. They posted it. They said, hey, we're taking messages in our DMs. Whoever gives us the highest offer is going to get the deal. And pretty much I went through it. I gave them the highest offer, and they're not pitting people against each other, which is really respectable. I couldn't believe they're doing it, but yeah, it was awesome. Ended up buying a $10,000 collection, driving to Baltimore, and sold a CGC9 Lugia for $5,000 at the time, because it was at the peak. It was just, yeah, you can find those collections in Facebook and eBay still. Just got to be looking. It takes time.
I can't believe you can still find those collections today. That's crazy. But with that said, I don't have Facebook myself, never have. So maybe I'll need to, get into that. So many times I get mentioned, this is what's being offered right now on Facebook. And it's just like, well, I'm like, I just don't have Facebook. Like, can this guy just DM me on Instagram or something? And like, no, they only deal with Facebook. Same thing. They don't have Instagram and, things like that. So I think if you're going to do this seriously, right, you need all platforms. You need all lanes. You need to be open on all lanes. So to be very successful. Alex, you mentioned, do you do the TCG player, thing, like selling singles?
Well, just like, what's your, main methods that you use for Pokemon and now you use for Metazoo? I mean, like, where are you sourcing stuff?
Yeah, because if it's Pokemon, I've experimented with TCG Player a bit. I would say I mean, at the end of the day, it's a very good percentage. 7 out of 10 times I come out winning when it comes to TCG Player. Buy some of these cards that are literally $1. You know, there was one where I was able to find them for, I think, 30 cents, but yet the graded PSA 10 goes for $300, which is insane. And so I did that a couple times, but then I gave up because it still makes sense to go out and buy 100 of these cards, even if it's through 10 different shops at different numbers each. But man, to do all of that work, get the men, sort through them, pre-grade, just to find that one gem, it's still worth it. You're still making money. But at that point, it just becomes way too much work, right? Where it's like, okay, at what point does it make sense and not make sense from if you were to break it down from an hourly wage standpoint, right? So unless it's something that's a lot easier, you know, things like that, I'll definitely pull the trigger. I mean, there's people that are, what I just explained, they're doing it on a day-to-day basis. And they're very successful at it. I just don't have the patience for that, nor the time for that. But yeah, TCG Player is definitely a play. eBay is still a play, depending on what you're doing, right? Once again, Metazoo, you're going to hear it probably a couple more times. There are certain cards, I'm going to look for these certain cards on eBay, on TCG Player. Get them cheap. If they need to be graded, I'll grade those. If they need to be sold to players, probably most likely in person, that's what I'm going to do. That's typically the bread and butter. Not to give up Shiz's spot here, but you know, him, and there was a couple guys, shout out Mace, I think I saw him in the chat, Rock Pokemon. You know, these guys have been coming to me selling their Metazoo stuff, and I can understand, because on eBay, you know, these guys can get burned if they sell it on auction. You know, there's not a lot of eyes for Metazoo specifically, but as I'm going in person, these guys want these cards. They want the Kickstarters per se, and they want them in their decks, because for most of them, for a lot of them, it's the most expensive card. But if I were to sell those same cards that I bought from these guys on eBay, I'm going to get burned just like these guys would have. I just have the advantage of being in person, being at the events with these guys, and just gives me a leg up. So again, just taking what I know from Pokemon, applying it to Metazoo, and that in person helps a lot. Pokemon, I'm not doing it in great numbers. Like, just my last sub, I think it was last week, I sent off 15 cards. Like, I'm probably going to send off 15 cards in a couple weeks from here, right? But there's people that are doing it 50, 100 cards at a time. And with Metazoo, it's the same thing. But I'm noticing in both realms, it's, unless you're looking at very particular cards, markets are going down for slabs. You know, markets are going down for slabs. And not believe it or not, in Metazoo, same thing. Slabs are going down, but in raw card or in raw form, they're like going up. They're like staying steady. They're staying very healthy, because it's mainly the players that's feeding the monster right now. It's not collectors, it's not investors, it's the player base. Pokemon is going to be a different monster on its own, but because you have all aspects of it, you got your binder collectors, your investors, your graded collectors, but it's a little bit of everything, and I think you can find gems in any one of these avenues for sure.
So are you full time right now? Basically, is this what you kind of do full time?
Technically, that's all I've been doing for the past, you know, it's ever since so we talked about a little bit, you know, before the live on the real, when Metazoo released the towers for 450,000, it's like, all right, well, I guess we're going to give this a shot and see what happens, only because there's little competition, right? I mean, again, maybe Shiz, you can tell me what the numbers look like for a regionals or just nationwide for the United States, how many competitors in Yu-Gi-Oh, in the Yu-Gi-Oh space looks like. Maybe someone can chime in what that looks like for Pokemon. But in Metazoo, you're talking about 200 players per event, you know, and I would say about 50% of those swap in and out depending on the region. But I just fly out to these events and give it a shot. I mean, the last event that I went to, I was one win away from making it to top 32. You know, and I don't consider myself to be a genius chess player, big head, you know, big brain player, but it just speaks to the lack of competition for Metazoo right now, and the great opportunity it is for anyone to just jump in and get that bag or attempt to get that bag.
You guys probably don't follow golf at all, right?
Oh yeah, follow
it. Well, I mean, because it's like I'm starting to kind of see similarities with like the Live Golf Tour. It's like where the the Middle East, I forget what country. What is it? Like one of the Middle Eastern countries. They started up their own tour.
Saudi Arabia, isn't it?
Saudi Arabia, and they're pulling all the best golfers to it because why? They got the biggest bags over there. And so that's the only thing I hear that like you saying all those big prizes on Metazoo. I'm like, man, I wonder if that's going to force like the top Yu-Gi-Oh, top other players from these other games to start migrating there because that's where the money's at.
Yep.
You worried about that at all?
Should be. I considered like sponsoring a team of like professional Yu-Gi-Oh players to learn the game and just go there and clean it up, but I didn't end up doing it. I would love to do it. I think it would be awesome. And obviously they destroy Basic. I don't know about Ivy, but they'd walk over his ass.
And to your point, Shiz, that is what's happening. I already know dozens of Yu-Gi-Oh players that simply the bag is there.
Yeah.
These guys are big brain. They've been doing it for a long time. So it's just the easiest route to just, all right, here's the money. Here's the big paychecks. It's a no-brainer. So
yeah, for a picture, like I have a local regional here. They used to do Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. It'd be like 250 to 300 people. And then the winning, you would get a mat for when you won. You would get a mat and then an invitation to nationals is all you would get. You wouldn't get really any monetary, maybe some packs. You'd get like maybe a box for first place, which is $80. Who gives a crap? But then the YCSs, which is probably as close as you'll get to Towers, you can get a prize card, but it's like 900 to 1,500 people. Unless you're in Cali, it might be 2,000. It's like the competition is insane. You're talking 10 rounds of Swiss. It's grueling. Like it's an entire day invested into that crap. So,
and 1,500, 2,000 players, is that only because there's a cap, meaning there's a structure, a point structure, or is anyone that wants to go play can play?
Yeah, for the YCSs, anyone that can go play go play and compete for the prize cards. Nationals is the one where you got to top a YCS or a regional to get into that one. Yep.
Okay.
So all right, let's do a little hot take. And I know there's so much nuance that can go into this question, but I mean, you guys are both still collectors, as am I. So PSA 9, PSA 10s. What are you going for? What are you taking? I know we can go into like every certain card, go into the pop reports, but just on average, I mean, do you go for the 9s or you go for the 10s?
Go ahead, Basic.
PSA 9 gang. PSA 9 gang. Since the very beginning, and I'll never change. PSA 9 gang. With that said, I know that the PSA 10, the growth of the PSA 10 will grow exponentially and run away from the PSA 9. But because I'm not looking at it from an investable standpoint, it's just a collector standpoint, it's PSA 9 all day, because then that means I can then take that extra money that I would have spent on a PSA 10 and apply it to other PSA 9s and add them to the collection. So that's kind of my mentality when it comes to buying collectibles for the PC.
Yeah, for me, it's PSA 10 for my Zapdos cards. Like I'm a huge Zapdos collector, and Zapdos is, for whatever reason, Zapdos and Diglett cards. Diglett's my guy too. So those guys I chase PSA 10s, not too aggressively. When I see a good deal come up, I'll try and snag it. But PSA 9 in general for Yu-Gi-Oh, in general for Pokemon is kind of where I'm at. 10s are easy sales. So that's usually what I want to do. When I get a 10, it's so much easier to sell it. It gets so much more premium. I'm okay holding the 9s for the most part and just keep it pushing, as Retro would say. What about you, Alex?
Hold on, so I just had to time someone out.
Damn, we're bringing out the spice, huh?
I said I've never had to do that. I've never needed one mod or had to ban one person, but like he's just they're just trying to get people, a rise out of people, whatever. I say now I feel as dirty as someone else who bans people.
With that handle, I'm pretty sure you might not even need to time out. You can just ban with that handle. I think that's very intentional.
Dude, I'm just This is not because of getting banned from Pokenomic stream, but I'm just like, I'm just so against it. I'm so against silencing anyone. Like, obviously that type of stuff, it's ridiculous, but like any type of other point or anyone even wants to argue with me or even like call me, any of that stuff, it's like, it should never get banned. I guess it stems back from me being banned in E4 and then just like silent. I mean, I just hate that stuff. So, I don't know. That's why I'm so slow to like ban or time anyone out. That's why I'm like that. But no, I'm with you, Basic. I'm nines all the way. I mean, obviously you can dive into the pop reports and like look at value and all that stuff. But I mean, gosh, like so many of these nines, like you can get for like $20 and $30, and the tens are going for over 100, over 200 sometimes. And it's just like, I mean, that one car I mentioned in my video, like that Full Venusaur from XY Base it literally sold at auction this week for $50 something. And the tens are, I mean, there's not even a sale, but I mean, they're going for over 1,000. They're listed in the 2 and 5,000 range, but they're going for over 1,000. I've seen one sell for over 1,000. And it's just like $1,000 for the same card as $50 when they're both mint cards. I mean, you can look at the 9 and you can barely see a couple specs where it's like a grader could have put a 10 on it that day if he wanted to. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I get like, Basic's favorite word, the investability wise. The tens, they can hold a lot more value because, when the cards get scarce and when the people with the big money move in, like that's where you see those giant jumps. I mean, those $300,000, $500,000 jumps in cards when things blow up because the tens are so scarce. But I mean, for me, it's like we all have a certain amount of funds we have, and for me, I'm just going to go after the nines because I can collect so many more. And if I don't make as high percentage gain, whatever. I mean, a lot of times when I'm buying PSA cards or any cards, like I'm not really looking for the investability portion. I really look for that more in my sealed. But I don't know. I mean, I know everyone's kind of got their own opinion on that, but I've always been that way. Like if I grade a 10 nowadays, like I'll usually sell it. I just realize the gains, and I'll keep the nines in my collection. So I just want to see where you guys stand. I always like to hear where other people stand on that.
Especially for modern, but I think just across the board, right? This is how I always looked at it from the very beginning. I said, when you look at a 9, when you look at a 10, it's the same card, right? Most of the time, it's the same card. Very rarely is the 10 extremely pristine, right? Especially in PSA, right? Because PSA doesn't play that 0.5 game and whatnot. So their windows are much larger, but I also like it from that standpoint because if you're flipping, PSA is the way to go. If you know you're going to be close to a 10, or it may be close, but it's better than a 9, but maybe not a 10, you might get a 10 and you're always going to end up better. From the very beginning, right off the gate, you're already paying for subjectivity. You're already paying a company money to put it in a case for their own opinion, right? Now, on top of that, when you look at the 9 and 10, like I said, very subjective to the point where you can crack a pop 100 PSA 10s, crack them all, resub them. Are all 100 going to come back PSA 10s? It's not. You can't repeat it. It's not 100% of the time. A percentage of those are going to come back 9s. Probably the greater percentage, I would want to say, that would stay 10s. But why am I going to pay such a premium for subjectivity already when I'm already doing it as it is? It's already an irrational hobby as it is, where we're paying, when we're paying a company, we're paying for slabs, especially for modern, to be in a slab. Think Moonbryon. We're already paying such a premium for this guy to be in a slab, where the intention of grading, when it first started, really was authenticating the card. Right? For some of these extreme vintage high value cards, it's about authentication. Grade was secondary. It was the authentication of the card. And now that's just gone away. It's like, let's just grade everything, right? Because we can just make money. So yeah, it's diving a little bit deeper into why I don't even bother with 10s. As a collector, I love the displayability. Before I even got back into Pokemon, I love collecting memorabilia, sports memorabilia. I'm from Chicago, so big sports fan. And when things are in nice shiny cases, clear displays, it is so beautiful inside your room. And so Pokemon, when I found my first Pokemon slab, because I did not know it was a thing, I was going to say something that was going to be very inappropriate. I just went crazy, and I went crazy, and I left everything behind, and I'm just going slabs, everything that I love displayed all over the place. I believe your podcast is Oak's comment said something along the lines of, if you don't own a binder, you're not a real collector. I'm a collector. I do not own a binder for the longest, nor cared for single cards of binders for decades. So yeah, I thought that was definitely a shot at me. I feel like that definitely was a punch to the nards, but
well, it's a selling factor too, right? Like it's, when you're trying to selling singles is incredibly difficult because everyone is like, they think you're trying to hide something in the condition. They're always messaging you for a million more pictures, and then they get it and they're still unhappy. You're trying to be as honest as you possibly can. I mean, I'm someone I still have 100% positive feedback. I always have my eBay account, but it's still just that's why I went to just grading everything. Because it's just a mess. Trying to sell binder sets, trying to sell singles. I think that's the other reason for grading more than authentication. It's just to have a number put on it so that everyone can agree on a number, because my near mint's not your near mint, and his live play isn't your live play. It becomes a mess,
Yeah, way easier to liquidate, because I had that issue in the boom. I had all these raw cards. I'm like screwed because I couldn't grade cards fast enough, and had to sit there and grind out selling raw cards on Facebook, and it was a grind. And that's the biggest blessing, is being able to grade cards, getting the grade attached, and just being able to take a front and back, and that's it. And then sometimes you get the people that need 13 other pictures, but it's the way it is.
Hey guys, anyone out there? I know there's probably tons of questions if I scroll back through this whole chat, but anyone who had a question, leave it in the chat now, and we'll get to it and bring it up, and we'll talk about it. So if I didn't get to it, I know we haven't taken any questions. Just leave it in the chat, and we'll start pulling them up.
I think we need to bring back the modern versus vintage conversation. and I say that only because I'm curious, right? I'm genuinely curious. Back when it first was happening, however many months ago, right? I definitely was on the boat of the, vintage over, modern. Today, though, because the markets have shifted so extremely the other way, I'm feeling like modern is way overvalued and vintage may not be. Where have you changed, if at all, Alex, with that sentiment? From months ago, that big vintage versus modern war, to now, has it shifted at all for you based on the current markets, or?
Can't say it has, man. I mean, if someone's coming to this hobby and saying, Alex, I'm here to invest. I have a certain amount of money and I want to make the best possible returns that I can in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. I just have a hard time looking anywhere else other than buying a box for $100, $105, whatever you can get them for nowadays. I don't know what the new retail is going to end up being after all this, after the dust settles. Maybe it'll be 110. I don't know. It's not going to be 125 like it was, or probably even 115. I don't know. But I just have a hard time pointing to somewhere else that, has as stable of growth and gains that we continue to see in modern. And people they always hit me on that every time on, oh, well, if X, Y, and Z never happened, it's just like, I've literally seen it since I got back in the hobby. If it wasn't the craziness that we saw, but things were moving up. Roaring Skies and Ancient Origins, those moved up. Those were up in the high hundreds, and then they got reprinted just the same way, Shining Legends got reprinted, the same way how Battle Styles, Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike got printed into the ground. They got reprinted, they tanked, and then a lot of stuff stayed stagnant because the Pokemon market was kind of in this like a whirlwind. They didn't know what was going on. Was everything going to get reprinted? Was this going to continue to happen? And it kind of went through a stagnation, but then everything rose again. It's like things were already rising, like Flashfire and XY Base. Those were already in the mid hundreds, and things were already moving slowly at what I would consider a normalized gain, say 10% a year or something. Things were already moving steadily before the boom. And so, even if things, calm down and go stagnant and then go back to normalization, I just still see a more reliable path for a investment in in modern sealed than I do other places. Like I just hold true to that. I mean, are there opportunities? Of course. Is what you two do with like the buying, grading, flipping, that is 100% undoubtedly the best way to make money. I just always push towards people who maybe don't have the time or the energy or even the knowledge yet to dedicate to it. So that's where I still stand. Flipping is going to be your flipping, grading. That stuff's going to be your best bet for money. If you don't have the time, I still stick with modern sealed.
Yeah. And shit, I would love to hear your answer of the mentality, again, vintage versus modern months ago, as we all remember that era and to now. But just to give you a little spill, because I actually forgot to give my my shift, I definitely have shifted into the modern over vintage. Not necessarily that I'm collecting modern or buying modern, but believing in the numbers in Pokemon and believing in the amount of people that have gotten into Pokemon, newer people, and those newer people are just going to lean towards what's in front of them, and what's in front of them and affordable per se, it's going to be modern, right? Versus vintage. Vintage is still going to be more expensive, where you can just buy, instead of buying that one slab, you can buy X amount of slabs in modern and enjoy it for the art, for the Pokemon that's on there. So that's how it shifted for me. It's modern over vintage because of just the sheer numbers in Pokemon today versus what they were before. So I have shifted from that standpoint. Still not investing, but I definitely do believe that modern is here to stay. The amount of people that are in this hobby are here to stay. But with that said, everything's a cycle. Eventually, the newer people that are in this hobby that are feeding into the modern, that's doing great for a lot of people, those people are going to start just like everyone else, just like myself. They started with what they know, with what they knew, and then eventually they start getting knowledge. Eventually they start getting into deeper things, deeper into the hobbies, the niches of the niches, if I may. So yeah, that's how I've shifted a bit myself as well. So what do you think, Shiz?
Home, before he answers, and to be clear, like, because I get, I guess like you almost label as crazy sometimes, but I mean, to be fair, I don't think that a modern card is ever going to be a base set Charizard. I don't think that a modern box is ever going to be a first edition base set box or even a first edition WotC box. Or I don't think they're going to get to that level. But it's like, from the level that those boxes are already at now, buying into that as opposed to putting that same money in modern boxes, I just think you can't compare the two. I mean, I just think modern's going to beat them every time.
Yeah, I think it's like super gambling. If you're buying a $12,000 base unlimited box right now, like, flip a coin, bud, because you could be going either way with that one. That's super sus for sure. But the modern stuff, I'm right there with you guys. The numbers are absolutely insane for the people. Just the stuff flying off the shelves, the number of box breakers. Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles is doing box breaks. Everybody's doing box breaks. Everybody and their mother is doing them. It's awesome to see it because people are buying into it. I don't think I've ever bought into a box break and then got a card worth grading in my life, which is freaking blows. But yeah, I'm here for the modern, man. Like I think you said, Alex, usually the modern boxes will top out around $300 or so on average. Of course, you'll get the unicorns like Evolving Skies and stuff, but if you can get into these low enough, like $90, $100 even for some, like it is not bad to get in and kind of just sit and hold them for a little while. It's, as I'm experiencing, it's I don't know, it's vintage. Like I said, it's super gambling right now. Obviously, I think in the long run, I think a lot of us have still a long way to go in our careers, and the money's going to go absolutely going to get higher. We're going to make more money in our salaries. So with that alone, you got these certain cards that are just finding their way into collectors' hands. Populations are low. That'll drive up the sales price on some of these vintage things, but it's going to be a while. It's going to be a long path for the vintage, and it always will be, but modern obviously is a good play for sure.
Yeah, nothing's going to die. I mean, I think people think that too. Like, I don't think vintage is ever going to die. It's always, I mean, it's going to find its footing eventually, and it's going to start to rise. I mean, because everyone always says it, but it's true. It's like I have a set price in my mind where if things fell to, like, if a base set box or all these old boxes got to a certain dollar amount, I'd buy them. Then if you get to an even lower dollar amount, like you basic said, I'd open it for a special occasion. Like, there's always a price point to where it's like people say, well, things could go to zero. It's just like, there's way too many people in this world that have way too much connection to this stuff for it to ever go to zero. Could it drop 50%, 70%? Sure. It's never going to zero. Like I'll be opening boxes every week, like on this channel, if it ever goes that low. But to your point though about the breakers, hey, you know, Modern needs a lot more boxes to be open to get scarce. You got Rev, you got, you know, TCA Gaming. They're doing their parts for the vintage right now. I mean, they're breaking those things. And so Basic may be in luck with the stuff he held, because if Rusty keeps this pace up, those things could really start to get scarce.
It puts a smile on my face because I know that there's hangers worth of you know, Watsy boxes out there, but every time Pokerev, Rusty, one of these guys, Dan, catch them all right, he buys boxes and you know, and then goes to Collecticons and sells them down. So whenever these guys are doing that, chipping away at the pyramid, at the Great Pyramid, puts a little smile on my face. I'm not gonna lie.
Now, no, you don't have the location of those hangers, right? That was never discussed.
No, they haven't. No, not discussed. Only the Illuminati knows that. Yeah.
Did you guys have anything else you wanted to say or cover before I take some questions?
Yeah, I was curious. You had mentioned a couple of videos ago you did top April investments, sealed April investments, I think, and the Yu-Gi-Oh one I think was number one, or one of the top ones. Did you buy any of the Yu-Gi-Oh boxes?
Tins.
What?
No, those tins were reprinted at some point. They didn't have the same packs, and I got called out pretty hard for that.
Oh.
Yeah, the Yu-Gi-Oh. What about it?
Did you buy any of those? How many did you get?
Yeah, so they're already. So I got a case of the. I didn't go heavy, like, because I don't really know. As much about Yu-Gi-Oh. I just know that, hey, anniversary sets. So yeah, I got a case of those anniversary collections. They were $460. I bought off the same link I shared, and Sassyado already has them up to 500. And so it's like, I think they're already getting bought up pretty heavily. Now, who knows how they're going to keep coming, but it's kind of good news for the little 10% almost hike for the short term so far.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty. I was pissed. I bought about $1,200 worth to open, and then grade some of the hits. But I opened just 5 displays. It was about 5 displays worth, and then I saw the price just booming, and now I'm pissed. I can't open it just because the price is what it's doing. So it feels bad opening Modern as it's going through the roof.
I decided I was gonna hold off on this. I'm just gonna open the actual boxes that come.
Those will probably do well.
They're actually releasing like whole booster boxes of LOB, Metal Raiders, Magic Ruler, and so on, or Spell Ruler. So I just figured I'd wait for the whole booster box. You know, I don't need to open all those displays and have 100, Wing Dragons or you know what I mean?
Yep.
What about you, Basic? You just strictly Metazoo pretty much?
I stick to what I know. And again, before Metazoo, I only touched Pokemon. Pokemon was my only lane. I never got into Magic. Yu-Gi-Oh! I got into the show, but it was right in that transition part of my life when you're a teenager and watching cartoons and collecting cards was just, it was fleeting. It was just in the rear view, and as every minute went by, it just kept disappearing further back. And so I did enjoy it a little bit, but that was it. Never the game really. It was really only Pokemon. I remember Digimon buying a few packs here and there. I enjoying the show, but nothing much. It's been Pokemon all the way. Again, and this is not helping. I should say this is probably helping the argument of a lot of the people that try to shut down Metazoo, as they say that all they did was just copy Pokemon. But that's the only reason why I jumped into it, and especially playing the game. It was very relatable. It's why reinvent the wheel? If it's already been invented for you, other companies have been successful. Just follow them. It's one of those things. So with that said, I brought it up because you guys started talking about Yu-Gi-Oh. Is this something? Do I have gold here? Should I open this? I don't know what this is. I got it as a gift, and I'm like, what is this? It's not even anything I do. So I was like, I don't know.
Is there garbage bin nearby?
Aside, those
yeah, right there.
All joking aside, those old I think some of the Yu-Gi-Oh! And definitely some of the Pokemon old mystery power boxes, those are going for some money.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know anything about the Magic ones. That's probably a new one, but yeah, mystery power boxes, those can be some serious money in some of those. All right, I'm gonna bring up the first question. Pokemon Wonder, he's got a channel. If anyone wants to check his channel out. Thoughts on black labels? I saw a couple people ask about black labels when we were talking about the PSA 10, PSA 9 stuff. It's the obvious evolution, PSA 10 is no longer enough. We're humans. We gotta constantly have that next hit. So when PSA 10 doesn't do it for you, you go to the CGC pristines, you go to black labels. Honestly, for me, black labels on vintage is probably a lot. Black labels and pristines on vintage is probably a lot more valuable than modern. I mean, I think you could probably crack every modern 10, and I don't know a percentage, 70% of them maybe would probably get black labels. I mean, just how well things are printed in a lot of these new sets. So it's not a huge deal for me because, basically your competition, people can say they're low pop, but basically your competition is every single PSA 10 could be cracked at one point, as well as every raw card. So, I say you get a black label, sell it and take your money. Black label collectors, hey, maybe it will hold up. I mean, all markets need, like Basic said, you learn how markets work. All markets need is enough people to believe in it and trust it and believe it's worth that and we're willing to pay that. And that's what the market price will be. So, I don't have any black labels, but I wish the best to anyone out there who does. What about you guys think?
Go ahead, Basic.
Oh, man. Where do I start? First of all, you don't own any Alex. Shiz, you own one, maybe? A couple, maybe?
Maybe four.
Maybe four? Okay. Brace yourself. And then anyone in the chat, if you own any black labels, brace yourself here. But no, it really comes down to my philosophy and just grading period. And then the 9s versus 10s. It's all subjective. You crack it and resub it, it's not going to get that black label again. So 100%, if you get that black label, you run with it, you sell it, you cash out, and you get into your next thing. I understand collecting what you love. So if it's like, for example, Shiz, if there's a Zapdos out there and it's a black label, hell yeah, that looks freaking cool on the freaking black label. Collect it, display the hell out of it. That looks freaking dope. But if you're just like buying all black labels because you believe that it is the rarest condition, rarity type deal, and nothing else matters, not a PSA 10, not a BGS, what have you, CGC 8.5, like nothing else matters. It's the black label. You're wrong. There's already been so many posts that I've ran into where they look into a black label card, graded black label card, and there's so many flaws on it. How is that any different from a PSA 10 with flaws on it? But you're paying a crazy premium because it's a black label over the already outrageous subjective opinion premium for a PSA 10. Like, what's next? Let's make it a freaking, platinum. Let's make it a platinum label, right? Why stop at black label? Let's make it a platinum label and get even crazier. So yeah, I'm out on collecting. I'm out on collecting black labels, but I'm all for grading and selling them.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of conditional rarity. There's a guy on Instagram named Low Poppin. Basically, he drives his whole premise. It's based on that conditional rarity. And I'm all for it. I love the aspect of it. Black label modern feels bad. I feel like modern black labels are like the new PSA 10s, in a sense of like the Moonbryon. I don't even know the pops of some of these cards, but it's well over 10. I think Moonbryon might be over 20 in black label. One just sold for a little over $6,000. It like halved in price in the matter of months. But black labels are awesome. I had mentioned, I'm going to take any chance I can to flex my my cards, but I'm a big Zapdos collector, and there's a few pop one Zapdos that are black labels. And of course I took any opportunity I could to collect them. There's only one in this rarity. are in this condition. And I'm all for the really low population. It is extremely easy to then turn one of these cards, but if you got one that's like a really high population and you're just competing with the other people, it's like first to market, you're racing to the bottom, just like modern PSA 10s. The Moonbryon is basically crashing. It dropped 6K in a month. So the next one that goes for sale, the people that already bought one for 12 grand and 10 grand and 6 grand already have their cards. So then the next person in line is going to buy it for 4,500 because that was his max. So you're just racing to the bottom on those cards that have really high populations. I like the really, really limited stuff personally.
All right. I think that answered that. All right. Hot take. Vintage was overvalued by nostalgia in the pandemic. Modern, better artwork by far. Modern is demonized for some reason. I grew up on base, but modern is undervalued still. So I mean, I know the art argument we can always use, but so I agree with like it was way overvalued by not just nostalgia, but by YouTubers. I mean, I came up watching nothing. I mean, SM Pratt was kind of it. I mean, sure, Gem Mint made like grading videos, but SM Pratt was like the main market talk back when I got in the hobby. And I saw it firsthand, the stuff he would talk about go up. I mean, I saw a freaking silver book. Do you guys remember that? He talked about a silver book, like with all the Pokemon cards, and that thing went like skyrocketed. I mean, so we saw like, you know, a certain amount of YouTubers all talking about pushing things, and then it moved from vintage to the middle generations, and you just kind of steadily saw everything that was talked about go up. And so I think it was overvalued by the hype, because when I got in for nostalgia. I mean, when I got in, you know, things weren't expensive. Basically, it probably remembers way lower than what I remember, but I remember like base set packs for like $30, $40. I was buying all the theme decks for like $40, $50. You know, some of the more expensive ones were like 80 or 100. And so like, you know, I'm talking like the like hard to find one. No, maybe those were the gift boxes, like the Tempest and Thunderstorm gift boxes. Those were in the hundreds. But like the old demo pack, like that first demo pack, that was like a couple $200-$300. The Black Triangle patch we're barely knowing about. Like all this stuff back then was so cheap. And then like, you know, from 2015 to 2016, when people started getting in the hobby, they like doubled or somewhat of like 50-70%. It was like natural driven nostalgia. And it wasn't really until the YouTuber hype where things really took off into like the stratosphere. And so that's kind of how I feel about the whole vintage. Like I believed in vintage until like the hype drove it into like astronomical heights, like the multiple thousands of percent gains. But you know, now that we're in this time, modern being demonized, I think we finally got past that point. I think people are kind of on board, like basic even for modern, you know, even Shiz, you know, putting modern away, even though it's not investing, just for, you know, like longer term flips. But yeah, I mean, as far as like, you know, I grew up with base set too. And I'm putting my money into modern right now. I mean, I still buy some collectibles or collectible cards I want from vintage. But yeah, I mean, if I'm looking for investment, I'm looking for modern. So I don't know. You guys take it over from there.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, just based on, you know, what the comment says, it's you know, modern has better artwork. I mean, listen, that's a subjective take, right? That's subjective. So even with you know, real art pieces, I'm actually more visually attracted to vintage, you know, older art paintings than I am for modern paintings. But that's just my eye and that's just my taste. That's just my palette. Other people might have the other opposite extreme, and all of that is okay, obviously, which is why I like I said, you know, going back to the modern versus vintage, I shifted into realizing that it is modern over vintage, just simply because the numbers for modern people that go towards modern versus vintage outnumber the vintage people. It's not even fair. It's not even a fair game. So therefore it is modern over vintage, but you know, to make it because it's of the art and the art is better. I don't think that's just I don't think it's just simply because of the art. I don't think I'm being biased when I say I don't think the modern art looks any better than today's. It's just modernized. You know, that's all it is. A car today is modernized, and when you look at a vintage car, I mean, we drool all over it, right? But today's cars are beautiful, right? But it's all subjective over, like, if you could only have one over the other, like, yeah, it's all subjectivity. It's so to say that one should rule the other based on subjectivity, it really, to me, it just doesn't make sense. But 100%, we're done with demonizing modern, I think. I think everyone accepts the fact that the number of people in modern just outweighs the older crowds, and I think there's a lane for everyone, and there's a lane for everyone to enjoy everything, right? Like, I can enjoy opening up modern with my girls, right? I can enjoy opening up modern and enjoy the arts. It may not be long lasting, but I guarantee that one day, as I opened up, like I remember opening up Evolutions, right? When it first came out, about 4 boxes with my daughters. They were really young. They probably don't even remember for sure, but I remember that day still, which is why I love one of my favorite modern sets today is Evolutions. I don't own any Evolutions, but it takes me back to that day when Evolutions first came out, holiday season and end of the quarter. And it was just an amazing time for me to open up. The other one was Generations, and then now Celebrations, right? Celebrations, once again, now my daughters are much older compared to Evolutions time. And they remember it. It was just like yesterday, because it technically really was, right? We opened up about 120 packs. We went to freaking Target and we bought up everything that we found. We stripped it all apart. We had a 3-way battle, and it was a crazy time. And maybe in the short term, it doesn't stick, but long term, right? 10 years from now, because I'm a Pokemon fan in and out, I'm going to, when I see a Celebrations pack 10 years from now, regardless of where it's at and pricing and whatnot, I'm going to remember that I ripped that set with my daughters, and there's going to be nostalgia attached to it. So everything is vintage one day.
Yeah. And going to kind of what you said, Alex, the YouTuber playing it. And when it was starting to boom, I was primarily just on Facebook. I had way too many, like Gary V. I love the guy, love his story coming up, but holy cow, I cannot stand the son of a shill that son of a bitch is. It's insane. Just so many sports people slid into my DMs. They saw me selling these expensive cards. Like, hey, dude, is Dragonite good? Like, should I invest? Should I buy this 10? It's $3,000. Like, he ain't gonna break his leg like LeBron James. So I'm chilling, right? Like, if I buy this, I'm making money. Like, way too many people were just speculating. They're like, obviously, we got to a $6,000 base unlimited Charizard. People were throwing dumb money into the game, and there was a lot of sports people. I feel like, of course, the Logan thing had some effect on it, but that probably influenced a lot of Gary V, and then Gary V influenced a bunch of his boys. Yeah, so that whole thing was just a disaster. And I feel like the vintage versus modern debate is a lot of the it's like Apple versus Android. Like, you're not going to convince the other people who are collecting just that other thing, like, the change. Like, it's like it's burnt into our brains. Like, I love vintage, love the way it looks. Like me, I'm slowly transitioning, liking different things. Like, I like the amazing rares because they have that old school box. The way they look, they pop out just a little bit. It reminds me of the old cards. It's pretty dope. So stuff like that just is nostalgia. That's unfortunately that's the only thing I grew up with, and that's what I remember. But maybe in 20 years, I'll have more nostalgia for 2023 because I've been in this now for 3 years. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. These will end up being vintage. But yeah, having grown up on base set, unfortunately, like, that stuff is all I know. Obviously, being in modern now, it's like I said, it's going to be burned into my brain in 20 years, and I'll want to see and have those again probably. And I don't know.
It's truly a sad time that the vintage versus modern debate's dying, and like Basic said, the modern being demonized is ending. I like those times so much.
Yeah.
I loved doing those debates. I don't know why. It was fun. I don't know if anyone else has fun with that or people just get angry, but I mean, I had a lot of fun in all those debates.
Yep.
Hey, you're muted.
But what do you think though, Alex? as like I said, obviously we are aware, we don't know the number, right? We'll never be able to calculate that or quantify that, but we know the large quantities in modern, the people that are just newly in today, right? That were never in before. The people that maybe jumped in are just starting to jump in now that were in Pokemon maybe 10 years ago, right? When they were younger. That's happening as Pokemon keeps, growing and evolving and keep running. There's going to be people that just 10 years ago they were in it, they jumped out, and then they're getting back in today. My theory is, it's a theory. My theory is just like anything else, right? When these people evolve, when these people get older, when they start appreciating older sets, vintage, things like that. But those low pops are going to remain low pops, right? That 100 PSA 10 pop Pika Japanese exclusive from 2000, 1999, 2001 will remain a 100. Fast forward 10 years from now, and you take today's crowds that are getting in today, that have gotten in the past couple of years since 2020, 2016. Don't you think that would naturally, again, thinking of cycles, gravitate towards those items once again creeping up? Because when you look at the large masses, if everyone, and obviously it's not everyone, but if the natural cycle is to now start deep diving into the hobby that you're in, and then you're finding all of these things, I mean, I think it's very safe to say that a lot of the people in the hobby today within the last 3 years and have never touched Pokemon before have no clue of what's really out there in Pokemon and its history. Once they start diving into these things, once their wallets get a little deeper, and wider, like, don't you think those markets will then, start bouncing back when you really then multiply it by today's numbers?
To an extent, yeah. I think about like me, and like I'm going back right now. It's kind of why I made that video about those XY cards. That's why I've been looking at I've been looking at a lot of XY full arts. Like those XY secret rares. Like, I mean, I truly, that's when I got back in the hobby. So that holds like a secondary nostalgia for me. Kind of like you said with Evolutions. I opened more Evolutions product than any product I've ever opened in my life. And it just holds that secondary nostalgia like that. That's why I'm trying to go back and I want to collect all the full arts. And I really like those cards. And it's like, I have no connection to like a level X or a gold star. Like, I see them, they're cool. I see they're worth tons of money, but I don't really want them. Like, now you could say I'd love to go back and get every base jungle fossil, Rocket Heroes challenge, all the stuff I grew up with and remember I have nostalgia for. But then it's like as you move forward, it's like, well, I never had Skyridge. I see the cards, they're cool, but then you get in that art thing. It's like, well, I think the modern art's a lot better than that. So if we're just comparing art, because I don't have connection to it. And so, I just think the kids getting in now, they're gonna have connection to what they grew up with. And I'm looking at the two biggest times people got into the hobby were kind of XY Sun and Moon transition time, and then Sword and Shield. And so it's that's why I feel like these eras are going to be huge for the hobby, as well as the original, the first edition base set, maybe Jungle Fossil, and then there'll obviously be some scattered in chase cards that all the big, money wants to go after. But as far as all the regular hollows or regular hits from all the middle era sets, man, I just don't see it. I don't see, especially as the sets get more and more and more and more, and we have hundreds of sets of Pokemon. I don't see why people are going to deep dive back into all these random mid-era sets. I don't see it. I could be wrong. I'm just one person.
Well, that's fair. I mean, we're all theorizing here. That's all we can do. It's just.
Yeah, it's I'm thinking out loud. I'm just I just can't. I don't know. I'm thinking right now we already have this many sets. Now, fast forward 3, 4, 5 eras. Why is anyone going to jump back to a Plasma Freeze, or why are we going to jump back to Dragons Exalted? Why are we going to jump back to these random sets? I get going back to first edition base, or at least Jungle Fossil, getting the first 150, or jumping back. I get that. And I get back to whatever each person got in. Some people like you, they got in around 2012, 2013. But I'm just looking where the most masses got in, and I'm thinking, man, 2016 and 2020 is kind of the biggest mass events that we've had so far. It's that's probably going to be around the time period that those are going to hold significance, but I could be wrong, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those booster box eras will be some of the better ones for sure.
So Mr. Waller's put this as a joke, but I think I like to talk. I mean, I think we should talk about it. Can you guys talk about losing money? We're not all here to make it. I mean, I think it's cool to talk about like losing money. I mean, I'll go first. I mean, obviously, most recently, I bought the Pokemon Go and lost a little bit of money. People think I've got the funniest like comments. I mean, even Pokemon USA had me on his channel, and they're like, yeah, everyone's been like wondering if you left the hobby and like sold out because you lost on Pokemon Go. And I lost like a few $100s, like when it was all said and done. I still have some cases, but I bought a bunch of cases and then it didn't go at all like I thought it would. I thought I would have a lot more hype and drive it up and have a good flip. Didn't work. So I did sell out of a good amount of them and kept just what I wanted to keep for long term. But it was like $340, $350 what I ended up losing altogether. I sold some on Facebook Marketplace and I didn't take a loss. And the ones I sold on eBay or TCG Player, I did take a loss because of the shipping and fees. But I mean, it wasn't a big deal. But other than that, like small, I guess, losses or break evens, like I think getting in, especially when me and, Basic got in earlier than I did, I didn't realize, but like getting in at the time I did, you kind of had that luxury of not having to take losses. I mean, unless you were buying into like some of those modern boxes in XY when they kind of like Rudy did with his Rudy bathroom. I wasn't doing that at the time. Like the only modern stuff I was buying really was like I started with Evolutions was the first modern, and then I bought Shining Legends, and then like I bought Burning Shadows and a couple other things. But I never really got crazy like I never got caught on anything. Everything was just kind of in an upward trajectory. It's kind of like getting into real estate anywhere from like 2008, 2010 time and on. You couldn't really lost, just kind of steadily rose. So as far as big losses, I might have never taken big losses because I never like got into the stuff like you did. Like I never bought out $20,000 lots. I never, took that bigger risks. I mean, the biggest risks I've probably taken it wasn't even a risk really. It was all calculated, like opening Jungle and Fossil first edition boxes when I knew I could sell the packs, grade the cards, and I knew I had the money, or like buying out collections back then. But like you said, I already had it all calculated out that all the money was already there in a certain amount of cards and everything else was just profit. So I never really took huge risks. The modern stuff, knock on wood type thing, everything's continued to work as like I hoped it would. Like other than like $100, $200 losses here and there, I haven't had gigantic losses. So I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not trying to act like I'm a genius. I'm not. Like it just it just happened to where I just haven't made any, massive mistakes. What about you guys?
I'll go first since I know a couple good ones recently, all kind of recently. I mentioned I purchased a PSA 9 First Ed Blastoise, so there's probably a few First Ed base set cards I purchased in PSA 9 grade that have lost money, and I held them until recently. I started selling some of them, so if I sell this Blastoise for what it's worth now, $3,000, I'm taking $2K hit right off the top. Recently I mentioned also I had a 500 card submission come back from PSA to grade those cards. It was roughly $7,500. Had been holding those for a long time, waiting for the returns to come down, the turnaround times. So I'm talking probably into all those cards, $10,000, including the cost of the cards, everything. And I got completely fisted by PSA in that grading return. So I should not have sent all 500 at the same time. I got a bunch of 8s, a bunch of 9s, and like 10% 10s, which is really effing bad for like mint cards. And they're all vintage primarily. Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, it did not go great. I don't even know my losses. I do not care to calculate it. I got a bunch of them sitting behind me to sell still. But yeah, those cards, Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, vending series cards in 8s or 9s are not ideal at all. 10s, they sell really well, but I got completely wrecked for sure. So it was unfortunate. Definitely some of my bigger losses that I'm still realizing today because I still have the cards. And yeah.
Anything basic? Nah. Your mic's not on.
Sorry about that. I'm kind of on your boat, Alex, where no genius here, but it was just a lack of selling. That and it reminds me, as you asked the question, it reminds me of a recent video that Pokemon Classic, shout out to him, that he rolled out. On his thumbnail, he has huge losses in parentheses, sort of, because his huge losses comes in the form of non-realized gains, right? So we talked about the situation where at the boom, my price point for a lot of these items back in 2012, and then at the peak, and I'm still have these items. Well, the non-realized gains, they're losses. They're losses at the end of the day, sort of, right? But when I look at my price point, I'm still plus, right? I'm still in the positive. I'm still profiting off of it. But it's an angle.
You sit at the blackjack table, you brought $100, and now you're up to 1,000, and you walk away from the table and you think, now I'm gonna go back and play, and then you lose. Now you're back down to 500. It's like, well, hey, you're still up. Well, I lost $500 though, because that was my money. Right. It's how it feels. Yeah, I know.
Right, exactly. So from a standpoint, right, we want to look at it. That's from that standpoint. I just haven't played a lot in the one flipping game to really have those losses, right? I just haven't really dabbled one long enough to experience those losses. Though my risk assessments when I'm doing my risk assessments as I'm doing these flips, these plays, they're very low risk, because again, as I'm just dabbling in, I'm just not going to go in, balls to the wall and freaking just throw down a $10,000 check and just see what happens. I'm just dabbling. I'm literally just touching a few cards here and there. And as I make the gains, I'll go get a few more cards. I'm not just there yet to make these huge plays. Even the ones that are in the few hundreds, they're very safe. They're very safe that even at the worst case scenario, I know that I can make my money back. If I lose, kind of like you're saying, Alex, I'm going to lose $100, which again, to me, that's not losses in the grand scheme of things. And I don't even think I've had those. Again, I just don't take those types of risks. But hopefully, eventually I get to that point, right? Because that'll be a good thing. That'll be a good thing if I experience big losses like that, because that just means that I'm in deeper. I'm making more plays. I forget the quote, but something along the lines of, if you haven't lost money in this game, you just haven't made enough plays. You're just not in it. You're just not in it. So I'm just not in it, obviously, at that level, at that scale.
That's definitely me. I'm not in it hard enough to, to that point though. Yeah. That's my biggest losses of not realizing gains fast enough. I literally still have the emails, with Rusty, TCG Gaming. And, I watched the boxes go all the way up and hit like 30K base set, like Jungle and Fossil, like first edition. They were flirting. They were in the 20s. I think they were in the 20s at one point. And I was like, Gym Heroes Gym Challenge, they were up there too with Team Rocket. But I was going back and forth, and I have the emails literally, like, we made a deal, and Rusty would be like, okay, well, that's good to the end of the day. Let me know. And I didn't get back to him. And then a week later, all right, man, I think I'm ready to let it go. Okay, well, here's where we're at now. And again, that's only good to the end of the day. Didn't take it. And eventually I make this deal with Troll and Toad for him. But like, I have the emails, just like the price going down and down and down. And I'm just like, but like you said, at the end of the day, you still make tons and tons of money. But it's just like, yeah. So those are I agree. The biggest losses were not realizing the gains. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yep.
All right. So is black and white modern? So I actually have a pretty good explanation for this. I actually don't even think all of XY. So when I consider modern, I basically started in my mind, and how I do my statistics is right after Furious Fist, Phantom Forces. Basically the first 4 sets of XY and back. The reason is because that's kind of when, like 2015, that's when the popularity started. That's when the print run started coming up again. That's why like Furious Fist, Phantom Forces, Flashfire, XY base are still really high, and a lot of the other XY boxes aren't, is because they were still on like the black and white print run. That was when Pokemon was still very much, low. Not many people were in it. It wasn't, no one was back in the hobby or play. It was just the old OG collectors. And so that's why I always look at modern, like from then on, because that's when the prints went crazy. That's when Pokemon Go happened, evolutions, and then everything just started. And so that's how I look at things. So when I look at black and white, I consider it still like a mid-era, set, which is considered like vintage in my mind, just because it didn't have the print run popularity. And that's kind of my explanation. What do you guys think?
It's funny. It's a little similar. And I've thought about this before. I don't think I've ever said it out loud, but to me, the cutoff point for modern versus what makes a set vintage is the release of Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go to me, because once Pokemon Go released, that for sure, and you could give or take a few months, right? Because we knew that Pokemon Go was releasing for X amount of time, and that brought a lot of attention back to the hobby. So in that pocket of months, 4 months, 5 months of knowing that Pokemon Go was coming out, whatever set was there, and I forget what set, I remember looking it up once, but whatever set was there when Pokemon Go released, again, give or take 3 months before that, that's my cutoff point for vintage. And then anything after Pokemon Go is modern, because of the attention and the waves that came in. And then obviously it's multiplied even more so the years after, and then 2020, of course.
7 years ago is vintage, huh?
How
old are your daughters?
My youngest just turned 10 yesterday, and my oldest will be 11 this November. So yeah.
Are they vintage?
Super vintage.
Okay, all right.
I guess I think mid-era is probably a better way to put it. I'd say like vintage, mid-era, modern. So I'd say let's say it's mid-era. Is that better?
Yeah,
it's a strong word, I know.
And it's a combination. I think Alex said it's a combination of like how many people were black and white specifically, right? How many people were in the hobby during black and white base set in comparison to even X and Y? There was some growth between black and white base and XY base. There was definitely some growth there. But that's to me, that has something to do with it. It 100%. And I think I'm being biased because to me, it has something to do with print runs, or what we would speculate a print run would look like for black and white base versus X and Y base. And 100% that's involved in my equation. But yeah, to me, it's like the forgotten zone, right? The lost realm where no one's doing it, no one cares for it. And then once everyone's doing it, it's not special anymore, right? When there's plentiful of X item, it's not special anymore. And to me, black and white is one of my favorite sets, not only because no one was around during this time, but just historically, the first full art cards, right? And Pokemon. I love the history in Pokemon. So black and white is actually one of my favorite sets. I know some of the people here are going to hate me, probably retro, but yeah, I love it. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah. What's the set? Legendary Treasures. That's the last set, right? I think that's the last set.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is like people, don't understand this now. Like, especially like, when Mason talks about not having product on the shelves. When I walked back in the card shop for the first time in like 15 years, okay, when I got back in the hobby, they had everything from Legendary Collection all the way through the newest XY set. Everything. They had the boxes open with the packs inside, and they had boxes behind them sealed. And you could have bought your pick of any set you wanted. I mean, there was like 5, 6 sets. And it's just like, no one understands that now. It's like, no, oh my gosh, I'd buy it all. It's like, but you wouldn't, because no one was doing that. It wasn't the craze. Like, there were sets that were that old that had not risen in value. They were actually a little more. I think like Flash Fire and XY base were a little more. I think they were like 130 or 150 or something. But they were all on the shelf still. And that's kind of the difference of now. It's like, that's how you can really tell like what was mid-era and what's modern, because it hasn't really been that like way with modern of having just a plethora of a choice on the shelf, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, yeah. Black and white base 2011, April 2011, April 25th. So we literally hit the 12th anniversary of base set black and white. 12 years, bro. That's vintage.
Guys, look at this comment. All right, so all the way in INU. I feel like this comment says both things. We need. Pokemon is a bad investment vehicle. I'm just saying. Just want to open anything I buy. Doesn't this statement make it a great investment vehicle? Like the sealed product, you want to open everything you buy, meaning that sealed product should be going up every day.
Yep.
I thought it was pretty funny. Not to pick on you all the way. I thought it was kind of funny.
Nailed it. That's why we buy sealed, right?
I mean, I know Basic loves to invest in it.
So yeah, so attrition is the number one driver for investing into something. Attrition.
Attrition, demand. I guess. I guess the perception that demand is gonna, continue to be there at enough rate. I don't know. That's a great question. Is attrition the only reason to invest in it? Just take that one while I'm thinking.
No, I think my only reason to invest in things is to make money. I don't give a shit about attrition.
Well, I mean, what drives right when we look at 10 years from now and we look at set X, and set X grew exponentially, and it's the king of the sets from 10 years from now. Why was that, right? Is it because of attrition? Is it because of demand? Is it because of combination? Is it because of just the limited supply from the very beginning, right? Something like UPCs, for celebrations.
Attrition, you meaning like people are ripping it open, basically, right? So, which is why I chose Lost Origins, because I knew, like, damn, it's got some sick ass cards in it. People are going to want to rip this for a long time. That's why I picked that set. So, 100% agree that the demand is basically linear with that, because if the demand's high, people want to rip it. It's going to get ripped open. Less and less and less will be available, even though there's a bajillions of them out there, but there will be less sellers on TCG Player, drives the price up.
I think there's I thought of my answer. I think there's a level, and I think it has to do a lot with that $300 to $600 range I said on modern boxes. The attrition helps it enough to raise it to a certain point, but there's always a point where people are going to say, okay, it's not, I'm not going to open it anymore. Like, it's not worth it at this price. But then in the cards inside, it's been opened so much that there's not very valuable. You can buy the cards you want. So, like, yeah, I mean, you could say, like, I don't know. If it's open forever, eventually it still will reach a price point where the set, like, the value of opening it or the set in general, is just not, it doesn't have enough value to continue to rise. I think there's ceilings to certain sets, if that makes sense. So, like, if some of these modern boxes that hit $500, $1,000, I don't think attrition's enough to help them forever.
Do you think Chilling Reign will ever reach $1,000 in our lifespan?
I think it's got a better chance than some sets in Sword and Shield. $1,000.
Shiz, when you say in our lifespan, you mean
for 30 years?
Jesus. How does it not go to 2,000? I mean, 3,000. Like, I mean, because if attrition is a thing, right? And we're applying, if that's a variable in the equation.
I mean, hey, Ancient Origins and Roaring Skies, I mean, those are $500 boxes almost, $400 or $500 boxes. And it's been less than 10 years. So basically you're saying, I mean, those were printed to the ground. Like, they went lower than Chilling Reign. They went lower than Chilling Reign. They were like 70s. I mean, I know some people say they saw them. I saw them in the mid 70s. Like, I remember like 76 a box very clearly. But then again, that was before the Logan Paul era. I don't know. I really don't know. If I had to say yes or no, I'll go yeah. I mean, I'll take that bet for 30 years.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I feel like when you say they top out at 300, I'm like, it depends how long you're looking out, right? Like,
so that top out. So just like that's like the range I like to look for when it makes sense to sell and roll the money into something else, because it's like
flat lines for a few years.
Yeah, like it takes them 5-10 years to get there. You have a better chance of like getting in a new product and riding that up than waiting, another 10 years to see if it goes from 500 to 7. It's like, are you going to wait 10 years to get 40%, or would you rather put that $500 into 5 new boxes? You're probably going to get 100% growth in that same 5-10 years. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Or if you're really lazy, you could probably just sit on it.
Basically, going to be laughing at us all one day. Everything's going to rebound into oblivion.
He's going to retire on Metazoo, dude. He's going to be the #1 Metazoo collector in the world, even though he lowballed the shit out of me on my cards.
To be fair, I expected you to say, "Get the fuck out of here," basic, but
No, I figure I was like, nah, I got you. I figure you got to make yours, right? And I'd rather sell it to somebody I know and save me a lot of work.
Well, Coda did himself to be the second person banned from the chat right here. Evolution is the worst set ever. I got back into Pokemon during Evolutions, and I hate it back then just as much as I do now. One of the worst QC sets of all time. Wow.
Coda 1, how old are you? Because I think that honestly, genuinely, that has a lot to do with it, right? Because the only reason why I decided to open 4 freaking booster boxes, which is I never bought that many modern booster boxes ever, and I ripped 4 of them again with my daughters and all. But it was only because of my attachment to base, right? Because of me wanting to have and rip. I've never ripped open a base set Charizard, the original base set Charizard art until Leonhardt. But up until then, I had not opened one. So that was my chase. Let me open and rip finally the original art of base set Charizard. I did it quite a few times. But yeah, that was my chase. So, but that was because I grew up during that era. I'm assuming, Coda, that you're not 35 or in your 30s. You're probably younger, but I don't know. Maybe you are. But yeah, that's why a lot of people, the people that do love Evolutions, obviously I'm generalizing here, but I feel like it's because of their connection to base set.
Yeah, that was probably my problem. I mean, they're not a problem, but I mean that's why I opened so much Evolutions and love it so much. It's one of the few binder sets that I actually have a full master set of, just because I pulled it myself. I mean, I don't know. I was on the kick back then.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the only full binder set I have because I bought it in the collection. I just was too lazy to flip it. It's still one of these binders down there. Awesome set though. Love selling it. It made I had a hell of a vacation off of Evolutions. Greatly appreciated that set.
So this is more of like a Jake's channel question, but I figure we just take it. I mean, Pokemon Classics put out a great video about a year ago about addiction in the hobby and balance you must find. How much do you see moving from a healthy hobby to an unhealthy addiction? So I mean, I don't, I'll let you guys, if you guys have anything to say about that, just to answer the question, but I'm the worst person to ask about that. I mean, I can show you my analytics. I have 0 watchers under 18 years old. And so the way I see things is we're all adults here. I'm not here to tell anyone what to do with their own money or come up with reasons on why you should or shouldn't do something. You're an adult and you can make your own decisions. And so I just think that's on a case-by-case basis. I mean, I don't think there's anything, there's nothing that can be done. Someone has a personality. If it's not Pokemon, it's going to be something else. They're going to spend that money somewhere else, and it could be possibly a more dangerous addiction. And so I don't know where you cross that line. I mean, did the people in 2016 cross that line that became millionaires? Are the people who turn this into full-time jobs, are they crossing that line? Is their job part of an addiction? I don't know. Like I know that question gets brought up on other channels like multiple times. Like I see it circulate around YouTube, and I think we're just focused too much on that. It's kind of like you were in that live stream with PK about the paywalls. It's kind of like that old debate about like, should we charge money, for services or things on YouTube? It's just like, if we're not pitching to kids, I think anything's go, right? Like, paywalls, selling cars, talking about buying cars, investing cars, like as long as you have all adults watching the channel, I have nothing against it. And I don't, the line's too blurry to see. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I've similarly made like an addiction video on my channel because each person's situation is different. A lot of people, some people will feel that, some people won't. If you're starting to put stuff on credit cards, and you probably shouldn't be doing that, but there's definitely way worse things to be addicted to than ripping cardboard and just blowing money into that. Like in general, the hobby moving to an unhealthy addiction, no, just because like I said, everyone's situation is different. There are a bunch of people that over leverage credit cards on this stuff, and it ain't great. I would not be doing that if you could. Like I said, everyone's situation is different. You need to take a hard look in the mirror. If you are overspending on stuff like this, definitely take that into consideration. Probably be more open to it with your spouse or your significant other. Talk about what your spending habits are. If you're sharing different bank accounts, like, you probably should be a little bit more clear what's going on. But I don't think the whole hobby in general is moving to a bad spot. It's more just collecting, having fun. It's primarily a kids thing. Still, birthday part. My kids are going to be 5 and 3 in June, and they're going to have a Pokemon themed birthday party, and they've ripped Pokemon 3 times and watched 7 episodes. So it's a kids thing. It will be perpetually for a long time. So the addiction is just primarily the adults overspending money on things they probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, I'm going to give a different angle here because you brought it up, Alex, about the whole paywall thing. And my angle of that was, it's just some people, and obviously, right, we have no control over adults and their money, right? But
I don't remember what for be fair, I don't remember what your position was. I went back and found the video and just focused on the parts where PK was calling me out. So I only remember what your position was.
My angle was more on the one, if you do start a paywall, yes, is it your responsibility for who comes in and out, and can they afford that $1, $10, $50, whatever you're charging? Is it your job to check these people's finances to see if they can even afford it? No, of course not. But when you are strictly starting a paywall, and this is to no one, right? And that person specifically, we're talking, we're on Jake's Live, but we know what the intention of most people jumping on that paywall was: to make money, flip, right? Learn those things. And from my standpoint, right, for me, it's very important, the finances and checking your finances, checks and balances, making sure that you're doing things responsibly, making sure that your bills are taken care of before you're doing fun things. First of all, that was my concern. That was the only thing that I was saying, and some things were taken out of context or maybe not understood correctly. Maybe I wasn't even being able to articulate it perfectly myself. But that was where mine was stemming from. And so with this question, addiction, 100% people are doing it right now in the wrong way. Me, myself, as I'm selling, I've had already 3 instances where I would sell an item on auction, and then people would reach out and say, hey, I just need Friday. I get my paycheck. 2 times, the last one, I'm just like, you know what, flipper's license, I'm just going to go for it. But the first 2 times, I was just like, bro, if you're waiting for paycheck, this is not for you. Don't do this. You shouldn't even be on eBay if you're waiting for paycheck. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you should already have X amounts in the bank account if you're on eBay buying Pokemon cards, right? Now, maybe this guy's flipping and he's starting there, and someone always starts from the bottom. But to me, that is always extremely risky. That is always, listen, I'm going to say it, irresponsible if you're going on eBay and then you're telling the seller, hey, I just need paycheck time. Can you wait 3 more days? And I'm like, bro, this is not for you if this is the case. For a lot of the items, I want to say for all 3 of those items, they were all $300+ $300 is a lot of money, guys. $300 is freaking groceries. $300 is gas to get to your job, for the month. $300 is expenses for what you need, emergencies, what have you. So addiction, I think 100% there is a percentage, not the majority, but there's a percentage of people, just like in any realm of this life, doing it the wrong way. And is it our job, to at the end of the day police that? No. And that's kind of my angle on it. So I kind of reeled back on that, because it's like, yeah, it's impossible to make that your job. It's good to be able to do good for others and give them advice, like, bro, you don't need this. Go use this money for better use. But yeah, there's definitely people doing it irresponsibly.
Yeah, I mean, like, not to get too introspective and all that, but it's like, I have that thought in my head a lot of times, about where money goes, because you really, it's like we go through our whole lives, especially through school and all that, where there's a right and a wrong answer, right? You're always getting the right or wrong answer. And then when you get into your adult life, you start playing with, you have money. There's no, it's so hard when there's no right or wrong answer. Like now, we pretty all agree, like, hey, you need to have your bills paid. You need to make sure everything, your life's in order. You should probably make sure you're saving for retirement. You know, there's certain things we all agree on. But then it's like, okay, well, I got my bills paid. My house is getting paid for. I'm even putting extra in my mortgage. I'm putting 15% plus in my 401ks or IRAs. Like everything, you know, cars are paid off. Everything's good. And now I got this money. It's just like, I constantly go through that battle. It's like, man, I probably should be just investing more, you know, for the future. Maybe I should put more towards my house, or doing this because it's safe. Like, what do I do? Oh, maybe we shouldn't go out on that vacation, or maybe we should just, you know, get the lower level. Do I really need to spend that much? And like, you constantly have all these conversations, and there's no right answer. There's not a right answer. And that's like the hardest part, I think, for people is it's like, you don't have like a right or wrong. You know, it's not like bad or good, good or evil. It's just, what do you think's right for you? It might be, it might not be. It's hard, man. It's hard. Question: are chilling rent energy cards undervalued? Yeah, especially in black labels. I think they're still at a zero pop, if I'm not mistaken. Huge opportunity, Mr. Walrus.
To the moon.
Yeah. So definitely, I would definitely go after those if you haven't yet.
There was a question really early on by Mr. Pummelchuck to Basic Trainer asking. Yeah, he said, "Have you opened any Metazoo Chrome, and what do you think of the set?"
Hey, what's the time on it?
I was really early on. I don't have it. I just copy and pasted it in like a notepad.
All right.
Yeah. So I did receive my my hobby boxes, and I'm waiting on my blasters. I'm chasing that 40K baby irresponsibly. But I haven't opened them yet. I've seen a ton of openings already. It looks freaking dope. I love Pokemon tops. It's some of my favorite, you know, sets in Pokemon and things that I like to collect. Metazoo looks good, especially Chrome. The first two sets were a little lackluster, to be honest, but Chrome, they knocked it out of the park. Some of these battle scenes that they created look amazing. And obviously, how can you not gamble on the 40K bounty hunting out there? I know Shiz as an opinion. I would love to hear his opinion versus in person or in voice versus text. But it's a fun little gamble. Again, there's always a responsible way to do it. I think just a set alone is great on its own without those one of ones. But that just adds a fun factor to it for sure.
Yeah. And the 40,000 is basically, just to explain to Alex what it is. It's $30,000 bounty by Steve Aoki on his 101 card, and then Mike Waddell did a $10,000 bounty on his 101 card, right?
Yep.
So in the Discord chat, I had
characters of themselves.
Yes. So Topps obviously is making the set. Metazoo's not making the set directly, so it might help the situation a little bit. But basically, they're putting bounties on cards of themselves for their own IP. And I said it's kind of like immoral in a sense, because they're now setting floor pricing for their own IP cards, essentially, like their own cards, their co-owner, and they're putting a floor price to. Basically, now they're driving the gambling. Like Basic said, he now wants to open this. Like, of course, like if you're gonna rip and get a $40,000 car or what, like, of course you're gonna rip it. Well, why not? So it's just like that added little spoof, and it feels bad because I know Dennis Kahn from Wada Games got completely slammed when he went on Gold Silver Pawn Shop on Pawn Stars, and he was quoting prices of their graded games, getting hammered, not putting, like, could you imagine if that guy put a buy price for a WADA graded game? Like, the dude would have been canceled. It would have been a wrap, because he got pretty close to that just for doing what he did on Pawn Stars by just giving a quote and an estimate for a game. And I thought it just didn't feel right. I don't have anything against these people or anything. I don't have any skin in the game, but it just similar to WADA, similar to that whole Heritage debacle with coins back in the day and like the shilling, it just didn't feel right to me. Like the two owner and co-owner are now setting floor prices for these things, which creates that demand, and it's their IP. So it felt dirty to me. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Alex?
I mean, I didn't even know about this, to be honest with you. It's
Yep.
pretty awesome. So let me try to understand this. It's they gave the rights to create these characters of themselves, but it's Topps is releasing the product. So I mean, they're not getting like, I mean, I guess are they getting royalties from this or anything?
I don't know. I'm not sure how that whole works. I'm sure. I don't even know. I'm sure they are.
It's just like any licensing deal, you know. Yeah, it's
Topps license.
I don't know.
They got some money.
I mean, I guess it's no different than, I don't know, going after another one of one. It's just these are going to be higher. I don't know. Are you asking me if like I think there's something wrong with it?
Yeah, I just think it's weird because it's the owner and the co-owner of the game shilling up essentially a Metazoo product. So it's creating the vision of the value for a Metazoo product. I could see if it was Cryptic. Who gives a crap? Like they want those cool Cryptic cards. They have no interest of this thing doing well, but now they do have interest. They don't want this Topps thing to completely fall on its face, right? So you would think that, of course, they're going to do what they can to kind of up it a little bit. And they did that easily, like just making 2 posts on Discord or in Twitter or wherever it was.
That is pretty bad. That's similar. That's exactly
the only thing to add in there. The only thing to add in there, to be fair, they did that only after the sellout. They sold Topps sold out of their 30,000 boxes in 30 minutes. Then they posted, hey, whoever pulls the one of one, Aoki, I'm paying 30K. Mike, I'm paying 10K. They didn't do it beforehand. They did it after the fact. And so, but you're 100% right, Shiz. It adds more of because for a fact there's a number of people that are doing it in large quantities to rip, right? So to rip and ships, right? And so now when people hear the noise, how do people not just go from, oh, I'm willing to buy a pack to give me a box, right? Rip and ship a box. Let's see if we can gamble for the one of one. I myself, after I heard that, like, I was like, let me go into a few of these rip and ships and gamble on a few myself. But again, that's why I said it. To me, it's not bad. I mean, there's been a few takes. It's my favorite one has been Dan, right? It's like there's no different from Warren Buffett freaking drinking Coca-Cola. That's his own product. Why isn't he promoting his own product? Why wouldn't he? Right? Like it makes no sense for him to invest in Coca-Cola and drink Pepsi in front of the camera, right? Like it makes no sense. So it's these guys are collectors themselves. They're in the hobbies themselves. Aoki is not like he's just a straight businessman and doesn't collect. Mike himself has been into TCGs, which is what drove him to start Metazoo. He played Yu-Gi-Oh! He played Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and that's how he created Metazoo, taking the best mechanics of the three and making one. So I personally don't see nothing wrong with that. And again, because the post was made after the fact, then that pretty much takes away most of the immorality of it. Helps. But I definitely, you're 100% right. Does that now set the tone for the market? Does that set the tone for what people were willing to now are going to do with that product? Yeah, for sure it does.
Yeah, the rip and shippers are gonna that's gonna be posted like a running banner on the freaking thing. Like, if you buy this box, you got a chance at a 1-on-1 could get 30K instant. Like, bam, like sold.
Yeah. And based on other collectibles in Metazoo, my response to you when you first brought it up was like, I don't think they set the floor. I think they set the ceiling because they really want this card. When I look at any other prices for collectibles within Metazoo, 10K is already extreme. Nothing is 10K right now for Metazoo. So therefore, to me, they're not setting the floor. They're setting the ceiling because they want that card.
Yeah, it's just enabling more gambling from
people.
But yeah,
I agree with that.
But I don't blame Mike Waddell. Like, it would be freaking dope if they depicted me on a Topps card. Like, I'd be like, damn, I want that son of a bitch. Like, that's freaking dope. But it's kind of weird because it is your company and you need to see it successful. You don't want Topps to fall on their face. You want them to keep coming back and buying into your IP. They will now. They will.
Before we jump into the next question, this is a serious thought that I had going along with my historical bad decisions with money and selling. Instead of selling that card for 10K or 30K, I was going to make them a trade of putting me on a Metazoo card. Keep the money. Here's the card. Put me on a Metazoo card. Is that a good trade or should I just take the money?
That's big brain there.
I don't know. What's more valuable to you?
I would
probably the card.
I'm not gonna lie.
I was gonna say it's probably the card.
It might end up like one of these. What is it? The Great Warrior on eBay right now. And then what's that going for? Like the last I saw was 160,000.
Yeah, that's the last. It went up to 1.4. Then they strike the bids down.
All right, so Alex Johnson. It's funny. I used to play hockey with Alex Johnson. What are the differences and similarities between the junk wax era of baseball cards and modern Pokemon? I mean, I'll take it. So, all right, similarities. Yeah, you could say, they both, both modern. I don't know, similarities. Like, there's not a lot of similarities, I don't think. Baseball cards, they blew up the same, around the same time as Pokemon did in the 90s, maybe a little before. And, everyone's getting back into sports cards now. The difference is because everyone's getting into sports cards now for the new sports players. All the old sports players are kind of, no one cares now. It's like with Pokemon, no one's ever not going to care about a Charizard or a Blastoise or a Pikachu. And so that's why that's the differences. The similarities were, well, again, I keep thinking about similarities of vintage and baseball cards. There's not really similarities because the baseball cards came up in an era with no social media, where the only way to keep your collection and your hobby alive was local card shops, card shows, collecting with your friends on the playground, like shoe boxes at home, trading back and forth. That was it. There wasn't an online community that was going 24/7 on multiple different platforms, hundreds and thousands of people interacting. You seeing all these cool cards and all this stuff that reminds you, and it's basically giving your brains buy signals. It's so different that I can't find similarities. I mean, I know what you want me to say is like, oh, things went up like Beanie Babies and sports cars and all that stuff. It was just a whole different time and era. The way people spent their money back then, the things people valued were completely different. I could never have seen my parents ever spending anywhere near what any of us do on cards. It would have never happened. It was always just like a point of purchase item. Like, okay, I'll get yourself a couple packs, or got a couple packs for something. It was never, buying boxes. It was never like putting serious money into it. And so, I think it's because when they were kids, that's how it was for them. They valued a lot of different things. So when they were older, they didn't value it. We really liked it. We valued it. Like, we wanted to spend all our money on it. Now that we're older, we think completely different. And this next generation now is growing up with us as parents who do value it. So they're going to, possibly value it too. I just think it's a completely different situation. And that's why I personally hate that argument. But you guys might completely blow me up on that. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Basic.
Oh, man. Yeah, junk wax, similarities to Pokemon. I mean, the first thing that kind of jumps off is like the overprinting, but then are they overprinting, right? And to me, in wax, and I'm not big into sports and ripping and whatnot, so I'm really going to be talking out of my ass here, but I want to say, as a sports fan, right, there's a ton of favorite, players, a lot of great players within a single year. And so when you're ripping today's baseball, there's a ton of great players, right? It's not just one or two like in Pokemon, right? In Pokemon, there's only a handful of chases. In baseball, there's a ton of chases, right? But there's only a few serialized. There's your alternates. Again, I'm not very familiar with the chase cards and and serialized and even alternates within serialized. But that's kind of what jumps off the page is the overprinting. But are we overprinting, right? Are we at the stage where product is just sitting on the shelves and it's getting devalued? I haven't seen that yet. So therefore, I don't think that similarity is even there. As far as the differences, you hit it right on the head. I'm always going to be a fan, a proponent of the social media. Social media will change collectibles forever. We are in the flex culture freaking game now. You know, black labels, I don't care how bad it looks. Someone's going to buy that freaking, you know, whitening on every single freaking corner black label and flex it and put it all over their freaking social media and whatnot. That's just where we are. Yeah, that's just kind of my little take. Again, not being deep in sports and knowing much of the junk wax era, other than that it's just overprinted. That's
Yeah, I agree with my guy Coda in the chat. He says, I don't understand how people can compare the two markets. They are nothing like. I basically think that's dead spot on. And I know a bunch of the differences, and I'll get into that. And basically, the baseball, it wasn't just baseball, but a lot of the sports cards in the 90s it's the junk wax era, obviously. So they were just a bunch of different companies printing a whole bunch of different crap. Not way overprinted. People did not know how to consume it. And when you look at Pokemon, they've always kind of had a pulse on the market, except for the 2003-ish time frame or whatever. Around there is when they were overprinting a whole bunch and it wasn't being consumed right away. But pretty much Pokemon, whatever you look at the last 5 years, 3 years, they've been really good at printing to demand, not too much overprinting happening. Whereas sports, baseball, hockey, there is so many different companies competing, just printing as much effing stuff as they can. They want to be the first one to market. There's just too many people to be in the kitchen making these cards to know what the demand is. Are we overprinting? That doesn't happen because they are overprinting. They got way too many people making these cards. They did it in the 90s. They're doing it right now for sports. Sports is, I think, in a really, really close to another junk wax era. I walk into these modern sports card places and it is loaded with freaking modern products. And like my good friend Professor Oak just mentioned on a podcast, 250 101s for like the latest rookie. Like, that's disgusting. Probably like 13 different sets did it. Seven of those are tops, and just stop. You guys need to chill the F out. Quit making so many different products. A rookie card should not have 250 different rookies that are even 101s, like brown, red, orange refractors, rainbow refractors, upside down refractors. It's disgusting.
Of one rookie or 250 rookies?
250 101s of one player.
Of one player. Jesus Christ.
Did you guys play sports growing up?
Mm-hmm.
Hockey, baseball, yeah.
Baseball, basketball.
So we all play sports, okay? Did you guys all collect sports cards as well?
No.
Dabbled.
Okay. Oh, I mean, so I did. I mean, my dad would collect them with me, but so it's like we all played sports. A couple of us collected sports cards. Did any of us go back and buy sports cards? The ones we had wanted or hits when I was a kid? Like, I didn't go back and buy like the 90s sports card. Like, what do you have behind you? You got video, you got the games we grew up with, you got the Pokemon cards, okay. You kind of hurt my argument there. But like most people, like the Pokemon and then like Nintendo N64, PlayStation, PS2, like Xbox, like that meant so much like to our lives. It was a huge part of our lives. And like the kids now, I mean, maybe it might not be as big, but I think it's a pretty big part of their lives too, especially gaming. And it seems like the cards are starting to be. I just feel like, Pokemon just gets taken down, like it thrown with Beanie Babies. But it's like, yeah, I had Beanie Babies, but nowhere near the connection to Pokemon. Yeah, I had sports cards. Yeah, I had, I loved all that stuff, or Pogs, or all these different things we grew up with. But it's like nothing like had me like Pokemon. I had the games, watched the show, had the cards, like, crazy about it. And then video games, like that's what all you and all your friends got together and played. And like that's tons of like awesome memories. I just think that gets swept under the rug so easily just for, Beanie Babies, Jump Wax era comic books. It's like none of that has anywhere near the pool Pokemon does. Go ahead.
No, I'm a big fan of some of the older sports cards. Were the ones where, hard line in the sand. This was the first card and is his rookie card. Like, I'm a big fan of those cards. They lost me in the new stuff. It's like the gentleman Rob F said, any card with RC on it now is a rookie card, but you can have a shit ton of different ones. So which one's the best one? It's obviously the people that are in the hobby know which one's the best one. It's usually out of the shorter printed box. It's the RPA on card rookie autos. There's just a whole bunch. I don't have enough brain capacity for it.
Retro is right too. Like the technologies help, but also the median household income. Another one of his comments, he said, the quality of life. Like, I mean, guys, I think a lot of people complain. Things are getting tougher, things are getting tighter, but a lot of the reasons is because our quality of life is a lot higher. Like a lot of things that we like live with are, when you break it down, they're luxuries. Like, a lot of the things we live with are basically made into staples, like things that we need, but they're really not. Like you don't need to go buy $1,000 cell phone. You could probably get a cheap free one from Walmart. You don't need own a brand new car. You don't need a lot of the stuff that we just live with, and you don't need to have all these streaming services. Obviously, you don't need Pokemon cards. Like what it really takes to live is, compared to what we make. That's why so many people have money to buy all this stuff, because we do have so much more discretionary income than at least it seems like our parents did. Maybe they did. Maybe they just saved their money better. I don't know. But it just seems like, that people today's lifestyles are, kind of head and shoulders at least above where I remember living middle class. What do you think about that?
We are 100% more frivolous than our parents were. 100% compared to them.
I agree. What do you think?
Yep. No, 100. Yeah, obviously there's people out there that are living paycheck to paycheck, but yeah, we're definitely living a much more simpler life, I feel like, because now you can go get McDonald's any day of the week. But for me, back in the day, if I got McDonald's once an effing month, that was a freaking day, bro. Like I was chilling. I'd call my buddy Tim. I'd be like, Tim, I just got McNuggets. Be jealous, you son of a bitch. Like it was amazing.
What do you guys want to throw anything out before we wrap things up? Any last thing to talk about? Last words?
Who you got winning the Stanley Cup, man?
Well, Blues. I'm in St. Louis. The Blues aren't in it, so I don't care.
I know Chicago's not in it. They suck.
Hockey has never been my sport.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Basically, where do you live at?
I'm currently in San Antonio.
So hold on, Shiz, you're on Central Time, right?
Eastern, Metro Detroit. It's Eastern.
Really? I was like, we're on Central Time. Why'd you tell me Eastern?
Yeah, no, it's Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay, I thought you were kind of right above us.
Almost midnight. Yep, chilling.
I got you. Basic. Any last topics you want to throw out there? You want to pump your Metazoo position a little bit? Or?
No, I don't pump Metazoo, man. I know all my boys, all the homies think that I pump Metazoo, but man, if I'm going to if I may, man, I just love it. Whatever I do, I genuinely enjoy it. If I don't enjoy it, I'm not in it, and even if there's money to be made, if I can't enjoy it, I'm not in it. So if I'm in Metazoo, just please know I enjoy it. I don't really throw money at Metazoo. That's Pokemon. And Metazoo is just genuinely enjoying it through more or less the playing aspect. But since you threw it out there, Metazoo's here to stay. I think even Shiz said it. Metazoo's here to stay. Now, it doesn't need to be Pokemon in order for it to be successful, right? It doesn't need to be Yu-Gi-Oh! It doesn't need to be Magic the Gathering. But in its own way, it can be successful. And I think the way that they're going about it is interesting. They have their interesting ways of going about it, but man, it's 2023. Social media is out here. Like the old ways of doing things, the traditional ways of doing things, that's out the door. That's out the window. It's the new ways, and that's actually one of the aspects that I love about the game. It's just that unorthodox, ownership and their owners and the way they go about it is the unorthodox methods that I love. So I'm enjoying it. Pokemon is amazing. It will always be amazing. It will always be here. This is what I enjoy the most today. It's not even collecting. It's just jumping on and talking to fellow hobbyists, whether you're an investor, whether you're a flipper, a collector, a binder collector, a slab collector, doesn't matter what you're doing. We all have opinions. We all have our subjective thoughts, and it's always amazing to learn from each other, and it's fun. It's a freaking fun time.
Yep. Alex, thanks for having us on, man. It's been an honest pleasure. Great to see your channel grow in the last year since I last had you on my channel. It's like 4x or so, I think, which is awesome. So keep on doing what you're doing. Obviously, you're doing some good stuff and influencing a lot of people watching your videos. So it's good, man. Keep on keeping on.
Just don't
say it that way.
Just don't forget to mention vintage a little bit. Just sprinkle it in here and there.
Yeah. We're gonna have like a vintage week. It'll be like one of those weeks. Like this is Shark Week. We're having Shark Week this week. So what do you hear? So here's the thing I was thinking about when people talk about Pokemon failing. It kind of brings up a good point. Kind of last hot take. What do you think of the card games right now? What do you think will be the first one if things start going down to fail?
What are the options? Give me some options.
All right, let's throw them all. Okay. So Pokemon, which we got Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, we got Dragon Ball Super, One Piece, Metazoo, Flesh and Blood. Throw any more out there. I mean, kind of anything that's kind of on the market right now. Like, what do you think would be the first to go down?
Damn. That's tough. Those are some good ones. Those are really good ones.
It's a serious thought though. It's just like, think about it. There's that much money flowing into all these different cards, and people think Pokemon's gonna go down. It's like, well, hey, for Pokemon to go down, these things are going down first, right? It's like, so which one's going down if the money stops flowing?
Yeah, those are some pillar. Yeah, I would have to just go with one of the younger ones just because a lot less there. Like after you're 3 years or so into it, making the game, you're building it up. You're probably chilling unless you completely F up. Honestly, it's got to be. I couldn't imagine it being One Piece, but it's based off a TV show. One Piece is absolutely killing it right now. But the only reason I would say them is just because they're like the newest. They're like a set into it, so they could F up. Like I don't know. It's almost impossible to pick it from that group. I think there's other ones, but what about you?
I would have no clue just because I don't dabble in any of these TCGs, but I'm with you. It has to be the younger ones. It will not be the vets, right, in the game. There's too many people in there, and Alex, you alluded to it some time ago in the stream. There's way too many people in here that once it gets to a certain price, you're buying in, right? Where in other TCGs where it doesn't have the masses behind it, to an extent it will, but it doesn't have the masses like Pokemon does to really allow it to survive longer than these other TCGs. So, yeah.
So Flesh and Blood, it's after Rudy made that video, I didn't know idea those prices were in the like thousands and thousands of dollars. So that seems like it's kind of stabilized itself. I mean, that's kind of set up. I mean, you think it could be Super?
Yeah, I have zero knowledge on any of that. So maybe I didn't even think about that one. I have no clue about the competitive scene.
Episodes, or I don't know what's going on with it. I mean, I don't know if it's as strong as a card game as the other ones. I don't know if they spent as much time, concentrating on like making it a strong gameplay, strong card game, as much as they just focused on, hey, we got Dragon Ball. We got the IP. We're just gonna throw it on cards again. It's gonna work this time because cards are big. I mean, I'm almost leaning towards that, just because One Piece, at least in my local card shop, they've told me, they're like, look, it gets outplayed in any game we sell. They sell almost every game. And, they'll have like 30, 40 people there playing that. And on the same night, they'll have like 8 playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's just like, well, man, it seems so strong. Like you said, it could fizzle out, but it's like, So part of me saying like maybe Super could be the first to fall off. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how their competitive scene is at all. I have heard zero about it. All I hear about is collecting, black labels, gold labels. Yeah, I'm not familiar with Super at all.
I mean, I just thought we'd throw it out there since it's like almost 3 hours in, no one else is really listening, so we can't really have too much hate on us at this point. All right, so you guys go ahead and shout out your stuff. You know, where can we find you at?
If you're into 12-hour live streams with very irrelevant and insignificant information, but fun, I would say, Basic Trainer on YouTube. No space. A lot of people complain about that they can find my channel, and it's because Basic Trainer's together. So yeah, Basic Trainer on YouTube. Find me on Instagram, Basic Trainer. You'll find all the links there. Yeah, man, just fun stuff. If you ever want to talk shop, I'm your guy, so reach out to me.
Yeah, awesome. Highly recommend it, man. Good discussions on his channel for sure. And my channel is just, you can Google The Green Shiz, one word, and you can find my YouTube channel. And also have a podcast called Slab Podcast, where we talk about all things grading, collectibles, video games, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and just it's a good weekly podcast we do every Tuesday. That's a riot. So again, appreciate you having us on, man. It's been a blast.
Yeah, and I'll leave links to the channels and the podcast and the Instagrams in the description if anyone's watching this after the live. Everyone who stuck with us all this time, you guys are real ones. Anyone's watching us after, thanks for checking it out. And be back here in another one of these next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.